I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel members. Tracy Anderson to the far left, Diane Knight to my left, Marcel Laurando, I'll be chairing. The assessor today is Svetlana Shavel, and our administrative assistant today is Katie Sutherland. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with your Board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed and recorded and will be part of the public record. Swear them in, please.
Do you swear? Okay. Please state your name.
Svetlana Shavel.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name.
James Murphy.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you. And please state your name.
Rocky Newborn.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
We will start with the number 929 Gordon Avenue. Savannah, when you're ready.
At the beginning, I would like to say my credential in 2 minutes. I work for the City of Winnipeg Assessment Taxation Department since April 2014. My current position, Evaluation Officer. I specialize in producing property for most of the time. I represented the department before the Board of Revision Municipal Board with respect to variety of property types, including vacant land, apartments, retail office. Since February 2018, I earned designation accredited assessor Manitoba in January 2019 from the Association of Assessing Officers of Manitoba. I earned a diploma in urban land economics from the University of British Columbia in 2018. Successfully complete the requirements for a certificate in real property assessment from the University of British Columbia in 2016. I hold a master's degree in agriculture from the Moscow Agriculture University. Thank you. Our first file, 19-4553, roll number 1202-3043-200, address 929 Corridor. Owner is United Investment Limited. We are valuing the property as it stands on January 1st, 2020, based on economic condition as April 1st, 2019. This appeal is with respect to the amount of the assessed value of the property. The assessor requests that the burden of proof be placed on applicant for not cooperation, section 5.3.3b on the Municipal Assessment Act, and if reduction in assessment is ordered, that is follows section 543.2 of Municipal Act.
Give us the evidence.
Please open page 17 on my brief. In response to the assessor request for income expenses related to the property at 2929 Caridon Avenue, the owner supply income expense information that is consolidated with that of the adjacent property at 925 Caridon Avenue. The amounts attributable solely to 929 Caridon Avenue were not provided, and so the owner has not complied with assessor request for information under section 16 of the Municipal Assessment Act. You can see on 17 page no information at all. On page 18 on top you can see a 929 corridor with 925 corridor. It's two property together. And lease for 929 Corridor Avenue only. Questions?
Tracy, any questions?
No question.
Diane, do you have any questions? No. You didn't supply the mailers? Were there any mailers?
It's here.
Where's the signed documentation and all the rest of it?
Page
I see these
70.
copies that they sent back. I'd just like to see when everything was sent out to them. We usually have the actual mailing that you sent them out so that we know that they received it, when they received it.
But they received
They might have
because
received it that afternoon and they didn't have
received
time.
his
I wasn't finished my question yet.
Sorry.
I don't know if you mailed it the day before, or maybe they didn't have time to fill it out, and they sent it all in on this day. Did you say it sent it 3 weeks, 2 weeks, a month? When did they receive it?
We sent this information during May 1st, 2018. You can see on top. And was supplied to us back April 26, 2018. On bottom of page 17.
And where's the rest of the information they sent you? They say with 925 Gordon Avenue. Where's that information?
On
Is it in
page
here?
18.
On page 18? So where's the information? Is this all they sent you?
Yes. On page 18 on top, we can
They
see
just-
that the two property together.
Yeah.
Plus we see tenants that belong to 925 Caridon Avenue.
And that's their rent.
That's it.
And that's all they sent you. Mr. Neufeld? Your response, Jamie, you
Yeah, so
have
I'll just have a couple questions. Looking at page 17, was this document altered in any way?
No.
Just looking at the top right-hand corner, it looks like there's a portion of the document that is whited out. Is that correct?
No.
Is there not a barcode that's typically on top of in the top right-hand corner?
It's typical barcode, yeah.
Okay. And if I were to suggest to you that there's actually handwriting above that barcode that says with 925 Gordon, would that surprise you?
It's on top. Yeah, I can see it.
No, on the first page.
On page first, I see nothing.
All right. And you say that this was all the information that was provided.
For this property, yes, correct.
Okay. Do you know who owns the property?
Property owned United Investment Limited.
All right. And do you know if they're associated with Smith Agency?
Yeah, on page 16,
Yes.
we can see a photo of this property. What inside, we can see
And do you know,
Smith Agency.
do you know what the relation is with the 925 Gordon property?
929.
925 and 929?
Okay, please open page 23.
Yes.
United Investment Limited has adjacent properties. 4 properties. First property is our subject property.
Which page is this you're reading from?
23.
Okay.
First photo is our subject property, third photo. Second, 925 Caridon Avenue adjacent property. What was mentioned on top of income expenses mailer. On page 24, we have another adjacent property, 915 Caridon Avenue. In another adjacent property, 911 Caridon Avenue. So this owner, United Investment Limited, on this property has 4 properties adjacent to each other.
So there's common ownership.
Common ownership, correct.
Okay, just before I ask you a couple more questions, I think we should distribute what we have in rebuttal information, because I want to ask you some questions on it. This is the submission that was made by Smith Agencies, and you will see, if you look at...
First, I would like look on data, is 2020,
Yes, no,
December
this
6.
correct, but if you look at the second mailer, or, excuse me, one moment. If you look at the, you flip it to the back, and you go to the back, and you see the property address 929 Cordon.
Which page is that, Jamie?
Okay, well, no page numbers on
Okay,
here,
sorry.
but the, if you look at the front, you put, not the first page, not the second page, not the, it would be the third page on this.
Okay.
You see it's blank, but the document itself is blank. But on the top, and you would compare that to your page 17 of your brief. At the top, this is, you would agree this is the same document, correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, so you'll note on your copy, the top right-hand corner is whited out, yes?
Yes, because it's our procedure, usually wipe this code.
The barcode, but in the
Barcode,
course
yeah.
of doing that...
ID and barcode should be wiped out, it's our rules.
Right, but in the course of doing that, you've also wiped out the handwriting provided by the author of this document, which says with
Yes, please
925
open
Gordon Avenue, correct?
page 18, my briefs.
So, and then
We
you,
keep here because no barcode here.
so why would you cover up the handwriting?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
It's not so important.
in your view, it's not important,
Yes.
but
Because we keep on page 18.
do you dispute that all of this information was in fact sent to the assessment department?
Yeah, it's what we
This was
received this
received.
information.
Okay, and so does this not suggest to you that the owner is giving you combined information with respect to these two properties?
That's why I asked for non-compliance, because we cannot separate this information.
You can't separate the information, so
Yeah.
what you're saying is that you don't like the format in which it has been
Yes, because it's two
submitted?
different properties. We have income for two different properties together. We have annual expenses for property together. It's not useful information for us. It's not separated.
Do you
That's
know?
why I ask for non-cooperation.
Right, so do you know if the owner has the capability of separating that income information?
It's have to be separated, how we requested.
How you requested, where in the act does it suggest that the owner has an obligation to give you information that it does not presently have?
Let's check how municipal assessment
Section
are.
16 of the municipal
Yes,
assessment.
correct. 16.
Let's go one at a time because you're
Sure.
confused.
Assessor may request information. 16.1 Municipal Assessment Act. An assessor may request that a person, including a craft agency or craft corporation who owns, use, or occupied assessable property, provide to the assessor information or documentation that related or might related to or that affect or might affect the value of the property being assessed, or that it or might be relevant to assessment of the property which, without limiting to generality or the foregoing, may include information for each year since the previous generation assessment respectively. Any sales of property, the cost of any construction of the property, and any income expense related to use or operation of the property, this specific property.
So they've given you the information that they have in the way that they can provide.
They give information for two property together.
And you would like them to take the additional step of breaking that out for you and providing some kind an accounting analysis for you that's not presently available to them.
It has to be done.
Okay, that's your position. Those are my questions. And do you have any other questions? No. Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Dan?
Well, I do now, because you,
No, you
oh,
don't.
sorry. I've heard, no, I took on his rebuttal.
Okay, well, yes,
So when you let me know when I
Yeah,
have
I'll let
that.
you know when you can go into his rebuttal.
Okay.
We'll ask her,
No,
Tracy,
no.
on his rebuttal.
So, page,
So perhaps if Mr. Neufeld could then speak to the rebuttal, then you can ask questions of it. We haven't actually presented this yet.
you talked about this page.
I just asked some questions on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
We actually
Okay.
haven't spoken.
Not a problem. I don't know how the
Yeah, he's gonna
process, we'll
actually,
just,
he'll put
when
the
it comes to
information
it, I'll,
first.
Yeah.
to ask the question.
Put your
Okay?
information on the record so we can ask the questions.
Okay.
Thank you. The document to be handed out was provided to me on request from the owner, and you'll note that the first page is signed by Randa Martel, and if you look at the assessor's page 17, that's the same person who filled out the forms that were sent to the city. I asked for a copy, exact copy of what was submitted, and this is what was submitted. The two properties, 925 and 929, have operated together since 929 was built in 1959. They've always been owned by the Smith Agency. Smith Agency has actually owned most of that block since I was told they were dredging basements with horses around 1910, and I did go to their 100th anniversary party. Old-time Manitoba business, and so they've never, they run these two properties as one economic unit. That's their choice. They're not required to break rolls up for that's anyone's request. They are just giving you everything that's within their control. So what they do is they give you the information that they do have that's separate, and so that the whole package, starting with the rent roll, which is actually for 929 next door. So they said 929, and then on top it says with 925. So that's Academy Floors, that's next door. Then they provide the rent roll for the property, subject property from today, 925 Corridon, and they say with 929 and on the attachment. And these are both semi-gross leases, which is why this is important, because it's not just what they have in their system, it's how they do recoveries. The recovery is the same number, period. It's not broken down separately. So then the blank page that the assessor gave you, the missing writing on it says with 925 Corridon. So it clearly said on there with 925 Corridon, 925 Corridon was attached. And the statement of income and expenses is written on the 925 sheet, and on the top it says with 929 Corridon. So here they've totaled their gross rent for both units, and they've been split out because they have it, and here they have their expenses. Now, a couple of these can be split. For example, the taxes could be split, but they're not charged back to the tenant in that same way. They take their gross area, which I had written it down the other day, I think it's 7,400 square feet, And the tenant's allocation is based on the total for the unit, the same with the utilities. They're not, they do have separate metering, but they're not charged out that way. However, waste, snow removal, maintenance, repair, wages, benefits, property management, and insurance are all not split, because it is operated as one economic unit. It's their choice, how they run their business, and they've been, this company has been completely upfront, providing everything that's within their care and control. Anything less than this would be not just an allocation, but one that would get them accused of providing inconsistent information, as the other sections of the Act would allow for, because it would be an arbitrary split. They're giving it to the way it comes in. And in our presentation of this, and plus the presentation of 925 Gordon, which was yesterday, we have the gross expenses, and we said, this is the number per square foot that's allocated in all of these properties.
So, because of the common ownership of these properties, its bookkeeping system does not allow it to attribute independently the income and expenses for each separate property.
That's correct.
I think that's the evidence that we would provide. I do have one other handout in terms of its legal authority on this point. Just in closing. It's more in the nature of a submission. This is a case called Boardwalk REIT versus the City of Edmonton. The province of Alberta has a very similar section in their legislation to Section 16 of the Municipal Assessment Act of Manitoba, where taxpayers in that province are required to provide information to the assessor when they're asked for it. And this particular case dealt with what does it mean to provide information, and what is the obligation on the taxpayer, and what is substantial compliance. So if you look to turn to page 23 of that case, and this still deals with the definition of information. So you look at actually the bottom, paragraph 188, second sentence, section 295.1 only calls for information. We may leave aside context such as mathematics, criminal procedure, informing, or inspiring, all irrelevant here. Here's how the new shorter Oxford English Dictionary defines information. Communication of the knowledge of some fact or occurrence, knowledge or facts communicated about a particular subject, event, intelligence, news, etc. So it's paragraph 189 in particular that I draw to your attention. So the word information can only refer to existing knowledge. The taxpayer may be required to do some selection or do a modest degree of collation, but in English this word does not refer to laboring to create new studies or analysis. The assessor could not, for example, ask a taxpayer to correlate the relative rent difference or otherwise similar buildings within or beyond 2 blocks from public transit, nor could he ask it to attribute its head office expenses among different buildings if its bookkeeping system did not already do that. And so herein lies the objection to the assessor, by the assessor, is that you're not giving us the information in the format we ask you to give it to us, and the answer to that is we're giving you the information we have. We cannot segregate these expenses because of the nature of our bookkeeping system. That's why we have provided the documents in the way that we have. So this is not the first time this issue has come before the board. We've addressed it before, but what I do find concerning is that the assessor, in submitting this information in the brief that, in the way that they have, is this documentation is misleading, Mr. Chairman. The assessor is well aware of the fact they received this and intentionally omitted it from their material. There is common ownership, and while they may believe it's irrelevant, that's a matter for the board to decide, and to withhold it is highly objectionable. So there is no non-compliance here. It's this has been provided. There was further questions. Certainly, I'm sure the owner would be happy to speak to the assessment department, but this information has been provided.
Sir, Larry, any questions?
Yes. Please open my brief, page 8.
This is a question on your brief,
It's
page
statement.
8? Yes.
It's our municipal assessment act. It says, from 16.1, assessor may request information at specific Manitoba law. This information, brand new information from Alberta.
Is this a question that you're asking, Mr.
It's
Lieutenant?
Alberta
No,
law.
I'm
that's-
asking you if you're asking a question.
I have statements.
A statement we'll wait for, okay?
Yeah, I will
You'll
do
that.
statements and not ask
Not right now.
questions.
Now is not a statement. Now is the time for questions. Do you
Okay.
have a question of your
This brand new information from Alberta law, correct?
This is a case that has been referred to in this board multiple occasions. It's an Alberta case which has legislation which is almost identical to Manitoba.
Yeah, but we live Manitoba and we following Manitoba Assessment Act, Municipal Assessment Act, correct?
Correct, the analysis is exactly the same. We're talking about the definition of information and what that means. And what it doesn't mean is laboring to create new studies.
Okay. Do you know when that 929 carried on to 25 carried on and two separate buildings, correct? They
Yes.
built in different years, correct?
Yes?
929 carried on built in 1967 and 925 carried on built in 1959, correct?
No. That's not correct.
It's correct.
I'm
Because
sorry,
I
you
have
asked
our
the question,
information. Okay.
said, no, it's not
And
correct.
also,
The evidence is on your front page. It
Hold
says
on,
1954.
Mr.
She was asking a
Yeah,
question. She's wrong.
you
we
answer
have
it.
two separate buildings. Services separate or no? Provided by city. Two different buildings has same service or separated.
We don't have
A
that.
typical house,
We
what
we
house?
don't have that information. I think there's some shared services. Tenants, users of each building use parking space in each other's space. So therefore, they're using utilities in each other's space. That's the arrangement. So no, that's not the case. There are some utility bills. Most of the utility bills come separately.
Separate. What we ask, utilities bills. All what we ask, separation utility bills for different building. What's problem here? To separate these bills.
Because they're charged back to the clients on a gross bill, which means I'm going to come to this hearing and I'm going to say I have two bills, one's for $1,000, one's for $2,000, but we're splitting it up on the basis of 50 cents a foot for everybody. Then the next accusation is under the act providing inconsistent information. This is the way they do their business.
Please open page 20 of my brief. When renovation happened in this property, they together or separate from different properties?
Well, as you can see from your sketch, they're together. The engineer's stamp has Ormiston's Flowers, Cordent, and Frescolio on the same sketch.
You can see on bottom Frescolia and Gordon Dental. It's separate building. Everything, it's what working permits.
The top picture shows the entire
Yeah.
development.
It's adjusted property.
No,
This
what
specific
that
property.
means.
One at a time, I'm having a hard enough time
Okay,
following already.
I'm going to finish answering your
Wait,
question.
yeah.
I did not finish answering your question.
She's not going to cut you off either.
Okay.
So you answer your question.
The reason that the two buildings are both listed on the permit is because in order to get a permit, you have to meet code, and you have to have there's certain requirements in meeting code, such as setbacks, building separations, et cetera, et cetera. They relied on owning 929 and 925 together in order to get the permit to renovate Frescolio. That's how you got the permit. because Karen controls both allows you to redevelop Friscolio. Friscolio is a retail operation. There's a different parking requirement. It's brand new code. Their parking requirement is 1 stall per 250 square feet. In order to meet that, they're using the parking in Ormiston's Flowers next door.
So
Question.
planning department use permits for separate building, correct? Each building has a specific address.
No, this one is based on the one next door, giving it some of the required parking area in order for it to get a permit for retail operation.
These two properties has different appeals and two separate roll numbers, two separate permits, it's two separate building. So in our stage we need separate information. That's why I ask for no cooperation, no questions.
Okay, she'll make the statement. There's no question there. You have a question, Diane?
Can I ask on this now?
You can ask them anything that they presented, yes.
Okay, so just going back to this page,
Yes.
that, just, because I don't understand, in the, page 17, is that in here?
I think it was page 9.
17, 18, so on page 18, the paper that's presented does not have the piece on the bottom.
Yeah, it's missing.
So how can we say these are the same pages? If you're saying that this was submitted,
Right.
this piece here is not on this, that
okay.
submission, so.
Yes.
Just asking.
No, she didn't send me that page, which is why she did sign the front of it, and it is the same signature, same person.
I understand that, but what you said,
I'm under oath here, I'm just testifying that I said, send me what you sent them, and that's what I meant.
so this cannot be the same then, because it's got the wordings on here that aren't on here.
No, there's two pages there.
No, this page.
So
No,
I'm
you've got two different pages.
I'm
there.
looking at the page that says with 925
Right.
corded, because she's put across Academy of Floors,
Right.
Academy Floors.
Right.
On this piece here, it says leasable area 23, 0% vacancy.
Right.
20. It's not on this page.
Right here. See?
And it's not whited out because there's no, you would see the white out
On the lines.
through the lines.
Well, I'm not a handwriting expert here.
I'm just asking. It's just-
But-
You're saying this is what, you're stating that she said this is what she submitted, so I'm just asking.
There's a couple of things I'm looking at here. Look under the line leased area, square foot, 407, then the line that says 2,300. Notice there's a dot above the last zero on both of them.
Pardon me? Where are we looking at?
I'm looking at the two of them.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
You see that?
I see that, but
Yeah.
this piece
Yeah,
here
and then
was
for-
not submitted, is all I'm at.
No,
Making a
I'm looking at it,
point.
then underline annual general recoveries, 410, the last zero that says 12,000.
I'm not disputing that this piece was not submitted, I'm just asking,
Well,
really.
okay.
It's just to your fact that this
Right.
lady said this is what she submitted when this piece here is not on there. That's all
Yes,
I'm getting.
I don't
It's nothing,
know
it's minor in the whole
why this
situation.
isn't showing it, but,
Okay.
even look at the date stamp.
Yeah, I agree that the top part is exactly the same, I 100% agree
Well, what you're suggesting to me is that there have been more alterations.
that this was added after
It's
submission.
just that this isn't, that was added after. That's one possible explanation.
Okay.
The other is that it was altered again.
I'm just
Yeah.
making a point, that's all I'm doing.
Any
see
other
that.
questions, Diane?
No.
Tracy? I've got no further questions. If we could ask you to shut it down so we can have a little discussion. We'd ask you all to leave the room. Sound is back. We're back. Call the meeting to order. So Donna, you'll be going first. We're denying your request. So you can start it up.
Let me excuse myself, thank you very much.
You may.
Thank you.
Good night, Mr. Worker. Whenever you're ready.
Based on the evidence in this report, it is assessor opinion that the market value of subject property as of April 1st, 2018, 915,000, in that the 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. The subject property is located in southwest portion of the city of Winnipeg. Please open page 14 of my brief. You can see subject location map and air photo. It's located north from Caridon Avenue. The subject site has rectangular shape of 6,031 square feet. The one-story improvements was constructed 1954. Interior alteration was done in 2010-2013 for the tenants. Gross floor area 7,472 square feet with basement area 3,736 square feet. We apply usable area for 5,456 square feet. On page 2, more air photo of subject property. I put just small white arrow of subject property. Subject property has 3 tenants: Dental Center, Fresh Ola Incorporation, and Smith Agency Limited in the basement. The 5 leases listed in the table on page 3 provide evidence of market rent for the subject property. First line at subject property. In 2018, it was assessed for $13.46. What we apply per square foot, we apply on 5,456 square feet. My 5 comparables on Queen Elizabeth, Pembina, Taylor, Caridon Avenue. You can see on map on bottom of my table. The best comparables, 2 comparables on Caridon, 698 Caridon and 611 Caridon. It's was because it's closest to the subject property. All building was built between 1987 to 2008. Lease start date was specific. I was looking before April 1st, 2018, in 2016, 2017. Square footage between 1,500 square feet to 10,000 square feet. So my mean came across $13.83. In media, $16. So, and we assessed this property at $13.46. It's fair and reasonable. On page 4, another set of comparables for medical office space. This I have presented 9 comparables. You can see map below. It's on WAC, Tatashe, St. Anne Road, Pembina, Lorimer, Boulevard. It's a lease started between 2016-2017. And leasable area between 600 square feet to 4,300 square feet. Media for office rent came across $19.83. Mean and media $20. We assess whole property and average $13.46. On page 5, You can see total 5,456 leasable area. We apply $13.46. Our potential rent for this property 73,400. Vacancy loss for this type of property standard 5.5%. We did apply allowed for not recoverable expenses. Not recoverable expenses including general 2% expense allowance. This expense include advertising, promotion, professional fees, structural repairs, and shortfall allowance per square foot to account for not comparable expenses during time of vacancy, $7 per square feet. More information about our expenses, 2% expenses on page 12. Here presented 29 comparables when address, street number, use code, it's across Winnipeg, it can be industrial and office buildings, retail. Our not recoverable expenses, net of vacancy shortfall as percent of effective gross income annual came across total media 1.06%. We apply 2%, it's reasonable. On page 5, overall capitalization rate 7.2%. It's a model generated for this type of properties. It's very well supported on page 7. On page 7, we look in City of Winnipeg, April 1st, 2018, 20th and 80th percentile. This property is suburban B and range capitalization rate between 6.2 to 7.3.
Which one? Which is it under retail or
It's office. It's office building.
office? Yeah.
This
B?
2080 percentile is suburban B, range between 6.2 to 7.3. So we applied 7.2, it's inside this range. More support information provided on page 10. Capitalization rate reading. The following example of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing this individual capitalization rate is to illustrate the accuracy of the model, is substantiate the model derived capitalization rate. They are not meant to be comparables specific for the subject property. First 5 comparables, it's office, and range between 5.1% to 6.54%, specific for office buildings. When we apply capitalization rate for net operating income on $65,911, our estimate value of subject property $915,000. On page 20 through 22, I posted 2 permits. What was done with property. One renovation was done in 2013 for 3 staff interim renovation occupancy. And also on page 22, I posted another permit. It's interior alteration was done in 2010 for medical office. On page 23, we already talked about adjacent property of United Investment Limited. It's for properties, 292 Caridon, 225 Caridon. On page 24, to 915 Caridon and 911 Caridon Avenue. All the properties in a row. On page 25 through page 34, it's my rent comparables. It looks specific. What is rent comparables on page 25? Queen Elizabeth Way. This building was built in 1989. Lease for $15.25. On page 26, one floor building was built in 2008. Leased and Pembina. Lease signed in 2017 for $16.15. On page 27, Taylor Avenue. Lease signed in 2017 for $14.40. On page 28, on Caridon Avenue, 698 Caridon Avenue, lease signed in 2017 for $17. On 611 Caridon, lease signed in 2016 for $16. On page 30, it's my office, medical office, rent comparables, Walk Street for $19.20. Building was built in 1965. On 31, on Tashe, both lease was signed in 2017. Biggest square footage for $15.50 and smallest for $18.57. On page 32, St. Anne Road, old building, 1973, one floor building, lease signed in 2016 for $19. On page 33, Pembina Highway, free leases between $20 to $21.50. And my last comparables on 54, two leases signed in 2017 for $22. So my evidence showed the assessed value of $915,000 and reasonable and should be confirmed. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
Page 5, this valuation prepared by the model.
Correct. But very well supported by my
Were there
evidence
any
and my report.
overrides on this?
No,
Who selected the comparable rents?
it's my selection.
You inspected the subject?
I didn't inspect subject, but I can describe subject from my information.
No, that wasn't the question. The question was, did you inspect it?
No,
Thank you. Next question.
You referred to some capitalization rates on page 10. Just confirm that they are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property.
correct. They are not meant to be comparable, specific for the subject property, yes. Just support our model, our table on page 7.
And that the information that was used in creating them came from owner-reported income and expense information, which means these sheets.
Correct.
Your comparables, have you looked at the exterior or interior of anything?
It is comparable, similar to subject property, we can see from photos.
Have you inspected the exterior or the
No,
interior?
I don't have time.
Okay. How much parking is on the subject lot?
Let's look on photos. Page 23, you can count 6 parking lot behind building. And yes, it's a good question because it is parking available to tenants and it's already included in our rent rate.
You're saying that's on page what? Page 20?
23 best photos. You can count how many parking behind building.
Okay, well, I see 3 cars, so you're suggesting 6, and then in conjunction,
If you're free in middle, yeah, correct.
maybe, in conjunction with 925, I see there's another 4 stalls there.
It's not our subject property.
You have it highlighted on page 23, so it is your information. So how many stalls are in 925?
It's not subject property.
How many
because
stalls? It's your information.
It's not subject property, no answer.
Okay. So 6 stalls for the subject, which is a gross area, including the basement, of 7,472 square feet, 6 stalls, correct?
Correct?
Does that meet bylaw?
Could you repeat question? What is your question?
Does that meet the City of Winnipeg parking bylaw for the subject?
Yes.
You're saying it does. Now your comparables,
Because Caridona used to live there, has its free parking on the street, and plus we have 6 parking behind building.
you're suggesting that street parking is an adequate response to meeting the zoning bylaw.
I have what exists there.
But are you suggesting street parking allows you to meet the zoning bylaw?
If this building copyright, no problem.
Your comparables, have you checked the parking on all of them?
Which page?
Page number 3. And I'll make this brief. We'll include page 4 in there, all the comparables.
I would like to mention that my income that my estimation of subject property on page 5 doesn't point about any parking lot. I don't have extra stream to compare it to this
You're not aware of the parking bylaw that you have to provide parking?
My point, if we account, if we decide to have extra separate stream for parking, I would provide comparables for parking stalls.
So you think
But
that,
in my case, T6 parking account inside our rent, what we apply for subject property.
are you suggesting that a rent for a site with no parking is comparable to a site with a lot of parking?
Next question.
Next question.
You're not going to get an answer.
Well, I might not do an answer of yes, no, I don't know.
This subject property has 3 tenants, 6 parking lot, it's enough for tenants.
She shrugged. Next.
Shrug, okay, well, I missed the shrug. Well, I am looking over all of your sites, and I notice that they all have a fair degree of parking, so you're not making any sort of adjustment to that issue then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I made adjustment. My net, my mean for my comparables office rent on page 3 came across $16. If I do office adjustment, $13.46, it's reasonable, it's fair. On my comparables on page 4 for medical office building, media came across $20. We apply only $30.46.
Sorry,
Overall.
your mean and your median on page 3, $15.83, $16, were
Yeah.
adjusted for which one on page 5?
If you do adjustment,
Which are the one that it's referring to? Which line item here? 1, 2, or 3? 46,
First
47?
line, it's our subject property, how we appraise for $13.40 only in 2018 reference day.
Okay.
My comparable shows and media for my comparable $16. So $13.46, it's fair and reasonable.
Okay, so you're stating that 1346 is the adjustment, one of the adjustments for lack of parking
It's a support.
support. Now, do any of your properties, page 3, number 3, you're not aware that that's owner occupied?
Page 3, Taylor. I have rent.
Are you
provided
not
to us.
aware that it's owner occupied?
No, it's income expenses mailer show rent and signed in November 2017 for 1,600 square feet for $16. Taylor. Rent signed in 2017 for 10,000 square feet for $14.40.
So you didn't look any further to discover that it's not
No,
a
it's
tenant?
what provided for us should be correct. The
What-
expected right information, it's followed by Municipal Assessment Act.
Your comparables, page 3, what floor are they located on?
If you, I'll check.
What floor in the building are they located on?
I know building, 2-floor building on Taylor. Taylor, 950. 50. I don't have this information which floor, but this building only 2-floor.
Is it safe to say that where you have it marked 28 Queen Elizabeth Way, 150 means it's on the first floor, the one standing for the first floor?
150, yes, it's first floor.
And 698 Corridor 100 is the first floor?
It's 100 first floor on my 5 comparables on second floor.
Okay. And 870 Pembina is a single floor building, correct?
Mhm.
And the same question goes for the other pages. 601 would likely be the 6th floor on Vaughan, Ash 8, 4th floor. 207, I don't know about 260 St. Anne's, I don't know the building myself, nothing to indicate there. Except your picture indicates it's a single floor, correct? And 207.7 Pembina Highway is a strip mall, so they're all on the first floor, correct?
Correct.
And then 1020 Lorimer, the second floor and third floor. Your comparables on Lorimer, do they have indoor parking in their lease?
It's plenty of parking lot, parking spot.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
On page 54, we can see air photo of Lorimer Boulevard.
Well, who are the names of the users in Lorimer?
It's some medical office. Lorimer, it's in our system, it's an office medical building built in 2012. But now I see first 8 comparables in ventilation system, it's office building. and Cinder Inc.
Okay, so you don't know then. I'm asking because I appraised the building and I know that they gave away free parking in the basement, underground parking with their leases, so you're not aware of that?
No. I don't look for leases. I have for parking lease.
The subject property on page 5 indicates that the record 11848 is in the basement. Is that correct?
Correct?
Did you bring any basement rents?
No, I talk about overall.
So you have no, now, the other two are at 1677 and 1552, and they're on the first floor, correct?
Mhm.
So earlier you said that you dealt with the adjustment for lack of parking by that, applying 1346. How did you adjust for the basement then?
We have first permits 11846, it's medical office. Usually it's higher rent that I presented my comparables on page 4. Second permits, it's office, it's our office main floor, who is it? Fresh Cola Inc. And basement occupied by Smith Engine Limited.
Those are my questions.
Diane, questions?
It's, the two permits, do you know what was done with those? $110,000 worth of renovations?
You can read on top. Interior decoration occupancy
It's
for the
okay.
tenants.
I got it now, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay,
Any other questions?
no,
Tracy?
thank you.
No, I think I'm good, thank you.
Could you, the building that's on Gordon that you have here, what year was it built in? The Mansfield building?
1954. 1954.
54?
My subject property.
No, not your subject property. 608, 698. For just one of your comparables.
It's built 1989.
Okay.
This is second average years built.
Is it completely leased out, or is the owner a part of it?
One second. 100. Main floor, yeah. It's two different leases on main floor and second floor. On my 611 Caledon Avenue.
Do you think that's a good comparable?
It's very close to subject property and it's our time office S.
Have you ever been in this building?
I didn't been inside.
No. Have you been in the building that we're looking at right now? At the florist shop or the other one?
No.
On with your presentation, Mr. Newcock.
There's just one question as procedure. In our package, we have this document as original information. Is this planning, or is the assessor planning going over this?
We've all been over it a number of times. If you'd like her to explain it to you.
No, I just, it was in the primary information,
Yeah.
so it's a question of order, procedure, everything
We're going
else.
to give you the same, you're going to present your information as well.
What-
And hopefully you don't read it all onto the record either.
I don't have
Unless-
this information. It was not provided to me.
Yeah, you did. Yours, information's right here. We're talking about yours right now.
Mine? I did
The
so.
Winnipeg assessment rebuttal package?
It's
Was this not here?
It was included in the information.
for autos.
It's included in your package.
I guess I did mistake because it's color. Sorry about it.
Hmm?
It's not. It's not for this here.
It's not for this one? Well, it's usually for all of them, but anyway.
Well, I'm, okay.
It's not for this building.
Okay, that's fine. Now, I think most members are aware of this, and this is nothing new, this is for the record.
Yeah, we don't need to see it.
Well, I know, it's going in the record.
Yes, it's in the record.
And I don't need, I may refer to it.
Have you heard it already,
Yeah.
Ms. Shable?
I
Would you like to hear it again?
No.
Do you have any questions on it?
No.
No?
I
Thank you very
think it
much.
says Monday, as long as it gets in the record, all right?
It's in the record.
And I'll
Believe
give,
me, we don't have to hear it
I'll
again.
give you my other copy at the end, so it gets in the record, in case I gotta refer to anything there.
You can provide me with this information.
You haven't seen it?
It's coming.
It's coming, we'll get you a copy. All of it? We gotta split it up, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Yeah, there's two sets.
All the way down.
It's just that.
It's like playing cards.
I don't know if I've ever had the pleasure of explaining this to
Diane?
Diane, and,
I was with you a couple of years ago, so is this different?
no, it's brand
My
new.
brand new.
This is
I'm
brand new.
going to have to say,
You
no,
haven't
I
heard
have
it?
not heard it.
You haven't heard his presentation on the 5%?
I do understand the 5%
Yes,
very
she's-
well.
She understands it better than most of us.
Yeah.
I'm trusting that the other board members, if there's questions, will, I think,
If we have questions, we ask her.
all right.
Yeah, and I just did a bunch of reading on it again.
She understands it better than...
Okay, so the property is built as a one-story and then renovated out to, they have basement space, and it really is unrentable. But the owner of the building, they're, I'm not going to use the word frugal, but they're quite practical. They had some dead space. They needed their own office, so they put their office in dead space. Rather than take prime space that they could rent and make money on, they took the bad space. So the Smith Agency offices are in the basement, and it's inferior space. The upper level is occupied by a dentist and a company called Frescolio, which is oil. And it's very interesting oil. They have all sorts of maybe 80, 90 oils from around the world, mostly Tunisia, but if you're a big oil fan, that's the place to go. And that's what the permit was taken out for the code requirements, the code upgrades when it was put in. Nothing to do with value, it's just, you're treading water with building codes these days just to keep your doors open. The rent that they get is, as the mailer indicates, is a gross rent. So they have the numbers on page 3, and they show monthly rent, and then below that they have recoveries. And the other property, which is at the top of page 4, is also part of this complex. So it has its as well. So the recoveries all go to a big pot. So essentially there's $130,000 of gross income and $60,900 in net income, including both buildings. So what we did with this is we calculated the paid rent on the basis of looking at the gross rents that the two tenants were paying. It worked out to $15.53. Sorry, more than the net worked out to $15.53 a square foot. There's $8.92 in costs that are split up between them. So your gross rents will be approximately $24.45 a square foot in gross. And then what we did is we assigned a rent to the basement because there is no rent in this document, and that we have the number of basement rents on page 6. These typical basements are absolutely no interest to the market because if you're in business, you're not going to be in the basement. So these are a bunch of properties that we found around, and the closest comparables are 2025 Corridon, a dance studio, and 1512 Regent, which is a sofa shop, and they're $5 and $4. Taylor is obsolete, it's gone. Archibald is partially owner-occupied. Portage is an archery, which I don't think it's still in business. And 614 Desmuron is a rent, but it's house rent. Sorry, it's the owner. 1805 Portage is a bowling alley in the basement. True arm's length rent. I appraised the place 2 years ago. And then Lodge, which is an older rent for its radiology apartment. So basement rents are just not desirable. We calculated a number of at $8.14, which was just a superior basement rent. Looking at the other rents and sort of meeting it in the middle, that was the mathematical calculation between $4 and $15. It's a little strange, but that we can have such a finite number when we're just guessing. Not guessing, but estimating. Vacancy, we don't follow the city's model anymore because they broke it. We don't want to be dealing with it. So what we do instead is we use the Johnson report. What we're looking at is it's typically, most of the uses in this building are office, and there is a retail component, and then we looked at the Johnson numbers on office. Now, there is a mistake here because the writer of this, which was not me, gave the suburban number shown on page 6 at 4.1, and then the office class B, which is also on page 6. This is not either of those. This is miscellaneous, which should be 7.6%, not 4%. We're not making a change, just saying that there was an error there. As to non-recoverables, the building is a semi-gross lease, so it's impossible to calculate the non-recoverables because basically everything is a non-recoverable. So we're using, in this case, an estimate of 5%, which is $3,200, and this is back in the old way it used to be done. As to structural reserve, which was what they used to call the 2% number, we're not using 2%, we're using 50 cents a foot. There's two ways of doing this. One is by percentage. If your project is big, like a shopping center, or if it's small, like this one, you look at a rate per square foot. And that's the cost of future structural repairs, future non-recoverable repairs, like heating, ventilation, equipment, those sorts of things. Now, typically we would be looking at a lower number in this building, 25 cents a foot, and that would provide a reserve for eventual roof replacement. This is standard appraisal, and it's all, by the way, in these handouts here. The reason we went higher is a personal inspection I did this summer, and it's a disgusting story because it not only highlights the structural problem, it also highlights the problem with basements. When you're in an old part of town with combined storm and sanitary, and there's a heavy rainfall, it backs up. And so their entire office was flooded, backed up sanitary, not land drainage. There were some very disgusting pictures that we didn't put in here, and I went down there after the cleanup. They said, we have to come and look at this. I said, are you cleaned up yet? No, okay, I'll be there next week. So I did come and look at it the following week, and the water damage, they had to replace the drywall, and a lot of the records were ruined, but some of them are kept in the building next door, 925, which didn't flood out. So you were spared that display, but it is the problem with the basement. That's why you don't want a basement. So our NOI 54,265, capitalization rate is we started capitalization rate. We first look at colliers who have a tracking service, and our summary of that is on page 27. This would generally be considered an office, suburban office, and multi-tenanted. In our tracking, we have A and B offices. This is neither A nor B. The definitions for that are actually provided on page 25. So our range there is 7.5 to 8.25 on a B. This is a sub B. It's actually not, wouldn't be considered an investment property, and we would not track them. In reviewing some market data, we had a number of properties that we looked at, and all of these came from, except for one, came from our records. We developed them ourselves, and two did not come from our records. And the closest comparable I can think of is on page 37, which is a strip on Portage with the bowling alley in the basement, and that capped at 796. That's a retail facility with frontage, and the reason it capped low is because the purchaser had identified the opportunity for rental increases and was fairly positive that he would get them. So his buy-in at 796 would end up being actually produce a plus 9% rate of return. There are a number of other properties that of various types. 848 Jubilee was a converted hair salon from an office, and the conversion was done, it was leased out and sold, and that's the number that it achieved. The problem with any sort of little property like this is there aren't investors lining up to buy these properties and rent them out. They sell from end user to end user. In this case, the owner uses it and generates money because they own the entire block. So we went, considering the age, the tenancy, the fact that the basement rent has been included in it, which is a risky proposition. 825 is actually a fairly low number, so our resulting value is rounded to $658,000. And that is my presentation.
Ms. Shable, any questions?
Page 5. Is it true that lease rate increased over the period from 2014 to 2018?
Page 8, sorry, page
5, your variables.
There are a number of suburban office rents here and some downtown rents, and they range in date and size and values.
You have not made any adjustment to account for inflation effect on lease rate over time, have you?
Inflation doesn't pertain to real estate. They're guided by the market. It may pertain to expenses.
Page 6, 7, 8. It's Johnson report, correct? Johnson report on June 2018 is post reference, correct?
Incorrect. You asked this question before, and I'm answering it again. It was published June 2018. I spoke to Wayne Johnson, who writes it. He had it to press in May. He did his collection and data verification in March and April.
Page 12. Categories, parking categories 18. Their general accessory parking requirements. On bottom, it's for office, correct?
Sorry, Anna.
On page 12,
Right.
parking category 18.
Right.
It's our subject property office. One parking space required. First line, one for each 700 square feet of floor area, but not less than 2 space per tenants. We have 3 tenants and 6 parking lot, correct?
So on this basis, the requirement is 11 spaces. So it's 1 per 750, and we're dealing with floor area not leasable. they would look at the number of 7472 divided by 750, rounds up to 10 as a requirement, if it were just office. But if you look down to the next category, number 20, retail sales, which is Frescolio, requires one for each 250 square feet of area. So the way code would be determined on this is Frescolio is required to have 6 spaces, and the remaining space is required another 6 spaces. But I just want to double check if there's not a medical office category here. Well, the vet needs it, but not a doctor. Okay, so yes, the code requirement is 12 spaces.
In page 37, August retail rate for capitalization rate. What your best comparables here?
Which page, sorry?
37.
I based my selection, we based our selection of cap rate not on any particular comparable, but by the market in general. These show the range in the market of the sales we've investigated and are comfortable with the numbers on. They range from 7.8% to 10.06%. I'm sorry, 10.8%. I think in terms of composition, the leaning would be to 819 Sargent, but that's in a worse part of town because it has a main floor retail and a second floor office, which is frequently vacant.
It was a sale in 2013, correct?
That's correct.
5 years before reference then, correct?
How about that?
Page 23. We see Colliers International Winnipeg cap rate for quarter first 2018, correct? Suburban office between 6.5% to 7.25%.
No, that's
It's
not.
range
That's the
very close to Winnipeg range, our assessment department.
Well, you didn't read
correct?
the rest of the document because that's the brokerage rate. And on page 26, it's explained how the brokers calculate rates differently than an appraiser does. And on page 25 are explained the standards used for that. And the worst building, Office B, mix of national, regional, and local lease covenants, size 50,000 to 500,000, usually the largest office asset class in most major centers. We're nowhere near that. There's nobody national in there, no one international, so it's miscellaneous. It doesn't meet this. It would never be included in this study, and anyone who would want to suggest that a good office should go for the same as a bad office should not be practicing in this business.
Same information of Colliers cap rate quarter first 2019 presented on page 7 of my report. .5% to 7.25%. It's very close range with us, and we assess property at 7.2%.
As I answered the last question, I'll restate my answer. It's question time. You've asked me a question. The answer is you've used it improperly. that's not the way it was designed. There are 4 Class A, B buildings, probably B buildings in Winnipeg only. 1661 Portage, 1020 Lorimer, 1780 Wellington, near the airport. And I always forget the last one. That's it.
No questions?
No more questions? Thank you.
Stupid question, but if this doesn't apply to you, why did you put it in your report?
It provides a starting point for investment-grade properties. And what I do with it personally is when we go back to page 1, and what I've been discussing is called qualitative. And on page 1, we can then look at quantitative and say, let's compare the best rates and what is the difference between our building and then we can go
Yes,
through.
okay.
Yeah.
I got it now. Thank you.
Tracy,
I'm good, thank you.
you're good. I'm always good. Thank you very much for that. We're going to take a 5-minute. Let's lock and load. Call this meeting back to order. We'll be dealing with, I'm going to put my glasses on, 919 Notre Dame Avenue. Ms. Sable, when you're ready.
File number 19-4405, roll number 130602870. Owner is 6858 Manitoba Incorporation. We are valuing the property as is stand of January 1st, 2020, based on the economic conditions April 1st, 2018. This appeal with respect to the amount of the assessed value only. My recommendation on front page of my brief for the following for property are in error. As written, my recommendation indicates that I am seeking increase in assessed value. I am not seeking increase. I intend to write that, although my opinion in the market value of subject properties are higher than the 2020 assessed value, I am seeking the board to confirm the existing 2020 assessed value. I have copy of first page for everyone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the same. Is this different from what we had? No.
And just wording, I make mistake. Just last recommendation.
It's the exact same. Got your recommendation on the bottom of this one already.
I asked to be confirmed existing assessed value.
The same as what we had already.
Yeah, I did correct it, but my bad. Okay. The subject property is located northwest portion of city of Winnipeg, page 13. We have a location map. And more photos on page 14. Subject property is located northwest corner of Notre Dame Avenue in Arlington Street. The shape of the subject site has a rectangular shape of 4,116 square feet. The two-story masonry improvement was constructed in 1950 with leasable area of 5,040 square feet. We have the outdoor parking on page 2. More photo subject property. This is month to month. We have subject sale history in 2016. It was sale for 715,000. page 3, listed 7 comparables. They provide evidence of market rent for the subject property. First line, our subject property, built in 1950, two-floor building, for reference date April 1st, 2018. We assess 5,000 square feet, 5,040 square feet by $12.03. My same comparables on Caridon, Pembina, Taylor, Portrait, Century, Border was built between 1953 to 2008. Leases 2016-2017, private reference date. Square footage area between 10,000 and lowest around 1,300 square feet. Our my mean came across $14.79 and media $44.40. On bottom of the page, and my map of my comparables with red dot subject property. On page 4, five premises, device, leasable, total leasable area, 5,040 square feet. We did apply rent of $12.03. Our potential rent, 60,637. For this office building, we apply standard 5.5% vacancy, and also we allowed for not recoverable expenses. That include general 2% expense allowance, that include advertising, promotion, professional fees, structural repairs, etc., and shortfall allowance per square foot to account for not recoverable expenses during time of vacancy, $7 per square foot. Overall capitalization rate for this property, 8.8%. On page 7, we have our rate for suburban B property, 6.2 to 7.3. It's outside this range. Dual location and age of property, but it's in still in range for city low and high, 5.55 and 9.05. It's inside. More information support our capitalization rate table. Our range similar, very close to Collier, CBRE, Kaufman, Wakefield, and more support on page 9. These 5 comparables, Portage, Lombard, Henderson, Notre Dame, and Rockland, and office building, this range capitalization rate between 5.1 to 6.54%. They not mean to be comparable, specific for the subject property, but it's good support information. On page 11, support our 2% not recoverable expenses that showed 29 comparables with median of 1.06%. On page 15, we can see the financial statement rent rolls. This building reported 4,500 square feet, rent with 60% vacant space and 2 tenants inside. Rent information in home $34,800. If we take out 60% vacant space for 4,500 square feet, it will be occupied only 1,800 square feet, by this rent, income rent 34,800, it will become across $19.33 per square foot. On page 17 through 23, my comparables. First comparables on Caridon, two-floor building, built in 1989, list assignment 2017 for $17 per square foot. On page 18, Pembina Highway, list assignment 2017 for $16.50. On page 19, Taylor Avenue, lease signed in 2017 for $14.40. On page 20, lease on Caridon, signed for $16 per square foot. On page 21, Portridge Avenue, lease signed in 2017 for $13.64. And a building built in 1953 with same age, close to subject property. On page 22, Centura or Ellis Avenue, lease signed in 2016 for $12.50. And on page 23, lease on Robert Street, signed in 2017 for $13.50. We did apply for this property $12.03. It's fair and very well supported by my comparables. By applying capitalization rate 8.8% to our net operating income $54,216. Estimate value of subject property $616,000. And my recommendations at 2020 assessed value of $549,000 should be confirmed. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions, Mr. Newfeld?
You haven't given us a valuation that supports the assessment, have you?
I give my evaluation.
So what is this on page 4 and 5? Where did this come from?
It came across, you can see page 4. So what are your questions?
Where did this come from? Is this the model on page 4? Or is
Yes.
this your workup?
It's a model in my workup.
Well, then how did you get to $549,000?
What we was asked for assessment for 2020 that I asked to confirm this information.
She's asked for an increase to 660.
No, not
No,
increase. That's why I provide new first pages.
It was 549. She's asking for an increase.
No.
There we go.
No, she hasn't filed for it.
That's the difference in that page.
Yeah, it's different.
There we go.
I asked to confirm existing assessed value, 2020 assessed value.
Only
of
549 should be confirmed.
Yes.
At the front page. Okay. So your workup brings you to 616, but you say confirm the front page of
And
549.
that's my question. How is this workup from the model?
Okay.
Page 4 and 5.
It's my evaluation right now on page 4.
No, but to arrive at 616,000, how was that done? Is this a workup that was you done or
Yes.
you have done?
Yes.
So the model generated the rate of 549,000, and you haven't presented that.
No, I removed this one because it's site-specific appraisal now.
Have you inspected this building?
I didn't inspect. but I can give information about this building.
You have,
From my records. No,
have you inspected?
no.
No, okay. And your rent comparables, none of them come from this neighborhood, do they?
No, correct. On page 3, you can see closest comparables, it will be on Border.
Closest
And-
in
On
location?
Border Street and Century Street, it's in same area,
That's the closest in location?
Yes,
Are they
correct.
the same type of property?
same type of property. Property type office has,
Have you actually been in these properties that you're saying are comparable?
no. I was on Border Street for sure. It's a lot of tenants there, and it's renewed constantly.
So, did you also pick these comparable, rent comparables?
Correct, I was looking specific for age of building, so it should be not modern building. OFC, not motorized two-floor building, suburban building, and start rate, lease start 2016-17, before reference date April 2018, to show the market evidence.
Did you look at the rent that is being generated in such a property?
I don't have information in front of me. I have another now.
Sorry.
You can look
Right
at
here,
page 4.
Page 15, you have the information. So I'm just wondering, did you look at that?
Page 15. Yeah, I look at it, and I say if we reported 4,500 square feet, take 60% vacancy, and apply for rent and comments will be $19.53 per square foot, reported to us.
So you never calculated what the rent is on the two tenants who are in the building?
Correct.
You mentioned the sale. Did you investigate the sale?
One second, so 2016. It's a free notary.
Pardon me?
It's free sale.
I'm sorry, I
It's
can't.
normal sale.
Normal, you think?
Yeah.
So you don't, do you know who the vendor and purchaser were?
Purchaser 6658483 Manitoba Income today. Owner,
And the vendor?
I don't know.
Don't know.
I don't have information.
And you didn't investigate if there were multiple properties included?
It was investigated for me because I can see information that it's a okay sale and we count for this sale.
Did you talk to any of the other assessors about this?
No, I don't have time for it.
Okay.
I have 2 hours for each property to be ready for this hearing.
You didn't talk to the assessor who handled this property in 2016? Who did look at the sale?
No.
Those are my questions.
Diane?
On page 15, what year is that expenses, income and expense for?
On page 15.
There's no date on the actual sheet.
It should be, it's submitted in April 2018, 29 April 2018, and our due May 3, 2018, everything for 2017 whole years.
That's my only question.
Tracy?
I have no questions.
You have, is there 4 units here, or is it 2 tenants in this building?
Right
You got
now
the
it's
owner
2
and a tenant,
tenants, yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
And it's been that way since 2016, is that not correct? 17, after they bought it?
I don't have this information right now because I can see on page 16, it's month by month, both tenants pay for this space.
We'll go on to your presentation, Mr. Newfield.
I should probably address the sale first. I have here the income and expense form from, let me go to the old one, 2000 and, submitted June 20th, 2016, signed by Greg.
Sorry, the old one.
No. Greg, the insurance agent. Sorry, I had his name here somewhere on the tip of my tongue.
Mr. Gregg.
Mr. Greg, no. And the mailer went to Greg's Enterprises Limited. And the current user, LaSalle Insurance, is Greg. Greg, I can't ask Eric when he's not sworn in, but he'll remember Greg's name.
Not Murphy, is it?
It's Mr. Greg. No, what happened here is that there were partners in LaSalle. They split the partnership and sold the building off and went their separate ways. One kept the building, Greg kept the building. 365 McGregor was also involved, which was split up at the same time. They hired me to appraise it for the sale between partners. So the sale is absolutely no concern at all. It was a partnership split and involved multiple properties. And actually, no, they hired me. My daughter did the appraisal, not me. So the building is comprised. It was designed for 5 units, 2 on the main floor, 3 on the upper floor. Very, very basic construction. They have kept the one tenant on the upper floor and haven't had any luck renting it out. And in the last assessment cycle, the assessor actually provided us the sales flyer to rent out Greg's Insurance. And the asking rate at the time was $1,200 a month on half the main, which included utilities, and $500 on $500 to $1,000 a month, depending on the size of the unit, either the big unit or the little unit, utilities included. The other tenant, Winston, is a tenant on the second floor. We're going to rely primarily on the rent that has been collected, and so as a result of both our appraisal and the calculations that the assessor has, we have come up with $1,250 on the main achieved rent and $825 on the second achieved rent. There is a long-term vacancy of 60%. We haven't applied 60% because at that point in time, the highest and best use becomes invalid. We use 15% because that's if you exceed that, then you should change your highest and best use. The income approach is not a reliable indicator. I didn't know we had a property, and I'm repeating myself. I made the change at the hearing a couple of days ago when they put on too high a vacancy. You just can't do that. 15 is the cap. And so we have applied a 15% vacancy on the paid rents and the asking rents, and applied a figure on the non-recoverables, which was an estimate from the site, but I'm going to suggest that might be a little less than reliable. I see what it is. Included is the estimate was made with insurance and professional fees as the non-recoverable items. I guess it's kind of strange because a company that sells insurance puts insurance on their building. I don't know. I guess it could be a good number. It probably shows that non-recoverables in small buildings are higher than non-recoverables in big buildings, because for an item like accounting, you may see the same cost for a big building versus a small one. So that's what they've reported. The structural reserve is at 50 cents a foot, and that has to do with the age and the quality of the building. And we did inspect this. It's not the greatest building. It services the area, and the area is affectionately known as the West End, I think. Not Border Street, not Century Street, West End. And shortfall is lower because it is a cheaper building to operate, and the calculations we got from here were $597. We use a standardized of $235 in utilities because some buildings can be vacant and not generate utilities, and some buildings can have users in that use a lot of utilities, so you do have to use a standardized rate. And noting that the actual utility rate is $6,700, so it is a bit lower than we have here because they've got vacant space. We have a resulting NOI of $33,713, and we've capped at 10%. Now, the reason for doing it is not because I'm trying to posture in any way, but last year we were offered a recommendation, a verbal recommendation at hearing, and that was the cap rate in the verbal recommendation at hearing. So that would have been on an NOI of obviously $35,200 and a cap rate of 10%. I even have the cap rate here. The original submission was 10%, and then at hearing, the NOI was reduced to reflect the issues we had brought up, and the vacancy was adjusted. So our number differs just ever so slightly from the previous year. And I think that, as I said, it was a recommendation by an assessor who had actually researched the sale and the asking rates. That's my presentation.
Appreciate it.
No.
Tracy,
Oh, questions?
Diane,
No, sir.
I do have a question. You're on the financial statement, you said this statement was signed in 2018. On page 15 of the assessment. That's the same as yours, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's Jason Murphy, correct?
Yeah, I think that's Greg's brother.
Yeah.
You know them from
But
the sale?
they were partners.
Right.
That's who did the sale.
Right.
But how come Jason, so Jason's keeping it, not Greg? You said Greg was keeping it. If Jason signed this in 18, he's got to go. Is that correct?
Okay.
That's what,
Greg's gone, Jason's staying.
yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's just, if Jason signed it, that he did. Unless he's going to pay for it.
No. I just do so many of these that I try to memorize everything, and yes, Greg's name here from last year, and like, look at this is even last year. It even says this assessor's not like building sold, new owners. So, and Greg, yes, I guess they kept the name Greg's Insurance.
Let's put the sound on there.
Yeah, well, that's the franchise, or not the franchise, they have a badge or something.
I've got no further questions. It doesn't matter which one of them owns it. It's mine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. One of them owns it and they split. They divorced, the business divorce, and they had 365 in there.
Yes. That concludes that matter. The next property will be 88 Adelaide. When you are ready, Ms. Shea.
The Adelaide Street, I have same replacement for my page. I don't ask and please, I would like to confirm.
Oh, sorry. Running out of ink.
File number 19-2295, roll number 130-6101000. Owner Adelaide Investment Limited. We are valuing the property as it stands on January 1st, 2020, based on economic condition April 1st, 2018. This appeal is with respect to the amount of the assessed value only. Based on the evidence contained in this report, it is assessor opinion that the market value of subject property as April 1st, 2018, 393,000, and that the 2020 assessed value of 365,000 should be confirmed. The subject property is located northwest portion of the city of Winnipeg, page 15. On my briefs, subject location map and air photos. It's located on west side of Adelaide Street between Bannatyne Avenue and Monthermont Avenue. The subject size has a rectangle shape of 3,305 square feet. The two-story masonry bearing walls with improvements was constructed in 1882. It has special name Kelly House on page 2. I find photo by Gordon Boardroom. As a subject property occupied by Central Venture or Manitoba Technology Accelerator, its operation name on page 19. I have occupation permit for 2015 by Manitoba Technology Accelerator. On page 17 and 18, we have a financial statement, rent rolls. It's a partially occupied gross lease for $1, one tenants, and tenant Century Venture from 2010 to 2019. Building has several renovation, major renovation of structure and fundament was on page 21 in 2009. More, on page 22, 23 we have a main floor plan. Two-story building with main floor with meeting room, offices, kitchen on page 22. On page 23, floor plan of second floor, in basement plan of around 900 square feet basement listed in this plan. On page 3, I have presented 5 comparables for subject property. It's a mistake, should be April 2018. For 3,000 square feet, we applied $8.70. My comparables presented on map below. It's very close to the subject property with red dot. It's on Hargrave, 4th Street, Gary, Notre Dame Avenue, everything in downtown here. I was looking for old building, 1928, 1988. Leases started in 2016, 2017 with biggest square footage 20,000 square feet and lowest 1.5 thousand square feet. With media of $12.30. We applied for this property $8.70. The subject property has 4 outdoor parking. On page 4 you can find comparable property 2017 reported rental rate for surface parking. Map some parking below, very close to subject property in red dot. Our comparables on Hargrave, Bannerton, Westbrook, McDermott, Main Street. So stabilized net operation income per store per month range between $92 to 140. On one time, 300,000. For subject property, we did apply on page 6. For parking lot, we applied $74.75. That very well supported by my comparables on page 4. In capitalization rate 5%, so for parking lot, estimate value 72,000. On page 5, estimate value of office space, total area of 3,055 square feet. We did apply average $8.70. Our potential rent 26,588. For project building this style, we apply standard 5.5% vacancy. Also, we allowed for 2% not recoverable expenses. Allowance that include advertising, promotion, professional fee, structural repairs, as well as we allowed for shortfall allowance per square foot to account for not recoverable expenses during time of vacancy, $7. Capitalization rate for this property is 7.3%. That very well supported on page 8. It's suburban B office building, 7.3%, 80th percentile and 6.2 lowest. Our estimate value for office space 321,000. Summary of both my income value summary at page 7. So total estimate market value of subject property 393,000. That very well supported by my evidence. So we should I recommend to confirm 365,000 for 2020 assessed value. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Newfield?
Again, the same question I had earlier in regard to the change in valuation. Is what you're showing on pages 5, 6, and 7 your own workup?
Yes, it's new workup for this property.
So we don't have the workup that went into the original assessment of $365,000?
It's not necessary.
Do we have it?
I need specific site appraising.
Is it anywhere in here?
No,
Have you inspected?
no.
You know how the date changed from, effective year changed from 1882 to 1990?
Please open page 19. 19 through 21. Major renovation, structural repairs of foundation and wall was done in 2009. That's why we changed our effective years to 1990.
And what was the total permit value listed there?
We can count. On page 19, it's occupation, it's just interior alteration. On page 20, 200,000. On page 21, 240,000 was used to renovate this whole building.
Have you investigated the notes in the file on this property? And I'm speaking specifically of a piece of paper that looks like this.
I
Have you
have
seen
these
it?
notes, yeah.
Have you seen this?
I have with me, yeah. It's my records.
This page?
It's our city assessment records. It's not supposed to be in your hand.
So you've seen this then?
I use these notes. It's our private notes.
Okay. And do you have any more knowledge about this property other than what you've given us in terms of the history and the renovation?
I presented 3 permits.
Do you know who the current tenant is?
Current tenants, Manitoba Technology Accelerated Operation as Century Venture.
Center Venture.
All building.
And sublease to Cancer Care? Do you have that information?
Cancer Care was here. I have information. It's not anymore.
Correct.
They moved out.
No, the next two.
Fall asleep with the seat pretty soon.
Sorry, you have that number? I do have it here, save you some time. I have $1,600 a month net on a sublease from 2010.
Our reference day April 1st, 2018. It's not relevant.
That's not the question. I just asked if you had the information on the sublease to Cancer Care.
I have information about the new tenants on this building after renovation in 2008. In 2006, this building was transferred by Cancer Care to office building, and in 2010 was occupied by another person, tenants.
And the current mailer says how much the rent is? Is it $1?
Yes.
Plus $3,700 in parking income? That's your page 17?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Diane, do you have some questions? Tracy,
No question.
have you got any history on this building as far as might it be on the heritage list at this point?
Heritage. Yes, it's heritage. information
At what level?
prepared by Manitoba Department of Culture, Heritage and Citizenship, Resort Branch in January 1979.
It gives you the stats of what it is. It gives you the information on what type of heritage building it is.
I'm looking at that. The house at 88 Adelaide Street is significant for both architectural and historical reasons. But what type of heritage? I don't have this information, but it's full heritage building.
Do you take that into account when you're setting your value, or?
Yes,
that-
that's why my rent value of only $8.70. It's office space.
How long was your presentation, Mr. Smith?
Thank you. So this is called the Kelly House, built in 1882. The current owner is Richelieu, the garment manufacturer. They purchased it to hope to demolish it and use it as a parking lot. It was beyond repair at that point. There was some back and forth, and the heritage tax credit came up, and it was agreed that the budget would be $300,000 to fix it, of which the owner was responsible for $35,000. The rest came from the city. The eventual cost ended up being $514,000. That's because when they started taking it apart, there was nothing to repair anymore. They had to do foundation, framing. I think they saved some of the finish and then put it back on a building. Despite all that, and they put in central air, all sorts of modern things, but it still has a heritage designation on it. And it's still located in Adelaide. And it looks like the original building. It's about the least original historical building you'll ever see. After the sale, they made an arrangement with Center Venture to let them have it, and then Center Venture sublet it to Cancer Care at the $1,600 a month. Cancer Care was in there a while, vacated. Skip the Dishes was in there about 4 years ago. Their rent was $10 a foot. They vacated shortly after. Right now, the owner has still has the $1 deal with Center Venture, and makes the money shown on the statement that we provided, the assessors provided, which is about $2,600 a year in net income. So then there's the value, this fee simple value. Is there a fee simple value to Center Venture? They demonstrated a rent of $8.78 and a rent of $10. Both of those, of course, included the parking. Since those parties left, the parking has gone returned back to the owner. But looking at the market, and we have a number of rents on page 3, a lot of older buildings, some that haven't been remodeled, some of the original age, and the rents we were looking at, Bannatyne, Arthur, McDermott, were the ones we had seen, and the best buildings in this area are at $8, and that's what we buy. And that would include the parking. The last year assessment was $95,000. And that's not a typo. This is what the board decided a few years ago. We do have an outstanding appeal from 2016 assessment, but that's waiting to hear to the municipal board, and that number is at I think $300,000. But last year was $95,000. It's protected as by heritage designation. There's very little you can do with the building and very little market interest in it. So we think that the rate we've applied is fair. We've used an 8.1% vacancy, which is an office downtown from Johnson report. The Class D, it would likely be class miscellaneous, but the number won't change much. And calculation of shortfall was done on both the actual taxes and utilities, and the numbers provided, estimates, sorry, these are estimates on repair and maintenance. The structural was a difficult call for us, but we ended up going to the high end of the range because of the need to maintain the structure in the manner of heritage. And the assessor is mistaken. This was provided to me by the assessment department in 2016. These are the internal notes. And I'm going to read you a few things from the internal notes. The overrode the capitalization for the parking lot to 10.5% from 6.5% as per Stu McPherson in order to be the same as the building cap rate. Center Venture leases the building and immediate area surrounding the building from Adeline Investments. They have a 15-year lease for $1. I spoke to Jeff regarding this lease. Center Venture is in charge of paying the costs of construction and taxes, and they do not lease the parking lot located behind the building. There are 3 lots. Leasing from the Center Venture is the tenant of the building, Cancer Care. Their lease began February 1st, 2010, 5 years with a 5-year option, $1,600 a month. And then it's a description of the cost, $514,512. So the owner of the property, hoping for a parking lot, instead lost $100,000 and he's making $1 a year on it. And so he's paying penance for trying to bulldoze it. He's paying the cost of keeping it going for a long time. The building is subject to the heritage tax credit, and what that is, it's based on incremental taxes, and it's a 10-year program by which any incremental taxes over the base amount, which I believe was $1, are credited out for up to 10 years. And this, the date, the time is up on it. The renovations occurred outside that date. Demo permit 2008. Oh, here we go. Placed on buildings conservation list June '82 as grade 3 property. And the maximum heritage conservation tax credit is $197,000. So they're burning that off at, well, the $300,000 is burned off. That cost them $7,500 a year for 2 years, and then this last year cost them about $2,500 for 2 years. But now it's up, so now the credit just burned off. Up to 10 years of tax credits, and that was from November 30th, 2009. The City of Winnipeg report. So now we're returning to the market, so next year it will be taxable, and we want it to be consistent with the previous year at $95,000. It's an artificial number. I mean, the real number is $2,600 in income. Cap it whatever way you want. Put 4% on it, put 5% on it. It's it still has no value, and it's frozen. There's nothing you can do with it. They do not have the right to do anything with it. They cannot sell it. It is stuck in limbo on that site. So on the good side, someone protected a heritage building, and now someone has to pay for it, and everybody's paying for it. I just don't think that the city should be get payback on it for an owner's lost $100,000 on his cost, and we should just leave it as it is. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Questions? Tracy? Dan? This should you, I guess, owns a good chunk of that corner, doesn't it?
Yeah, the parking lot to the north, parking lot to the west, and building to the south, and then the big building across the street.
That's basically that block.
Yeah, well, no, that block he does not own. 337 McDermott, which is a regular shaped lot, and then I think one of the sites to the north, but he owns the next block and half this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was funny about it. He said, yeah, I tried to demolish it, and they made me pay for it.
How's that going? Further questions? This isn't going so well, is it, Marcel? 280 Stradbrook, please. When you are ready.
File number 19-4359, row number is 12031703500 at 280 Starbrook Avenue. Owner is Afro Management Limited. We are valuing the property as a stand of January 1st, 2020, based on economic condition April 1st, 2019. This appeal is with respect to the amount of the assessed value only. Based on evidence in his report, it is assessor's opinion that the market value of subject property as of April 1st, 2018, 909,000, and that the 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. The subject site property is located southwest portion of the city of Winnipeg, page 13 of my report. Subject location map and photos on page 14. The subject site has irregular shape of 7,206 square feet with leasable area of with improvements. The two-story masonry metal clad building was constructed in 1987. Leasable area of this two-floor building 4,124 square feet. On page 2, we see sale in 2003 for 482,000. Subject property lease, I did mistake. A monthly rent for 4,000 square feet reported to us. Monthly rent was $8,248 per month. It's bring us rent $24.74. It's occupied by one First Light Workplace Safety Solution. Income expense measure on page 15. It's fully owner occupied, and they show this 4,000 square feet, size 2016 for $8,248 per month. On page 17 we have permits of renovation. It was renovated 2016 for interior ventilation. On page 18, 19, it's floor map of this building. and 22nd floor. My comparables on page 3, I presented 5 comparables on Queen Elizabeth Way, Pembina, Taylor, Caridon, 2 comparables on Caridon, all built between 1987 to 2008. A lease started 2016 to 2017 with median of net lease $16 per square foot. We did assess this property at $13.98. It's very well supported by my comparables. On page 4, potential rent for this building, $57,000, around $58,000. We did apply a 5.5% vacancy loss, 2% not recoverable of expenses, and shortfall on 7%. Our capitalization rate for this building 5.7%. That brings us to estimate market value of $909,000. On page 21, photos of my comparables for 25 on Elizabeth Street, 3-floor building, rent for $15.25. On page 22, 1-floor building, rent for $16.50. On Taylor, 2-floor building, rent for $14.40. On page 24, on Caridon for $17. On page 25, 2-floor building on Caridon for $16. Based on the evidence presented in this report, it's my opinion that market rent of subject property as of April 1st, 2018, $909,000, and that the 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Neufeld.
So page 4 and 5 then, is this all from the model?
Model generated, correct?
And the selection of capitalization rates, it's below the 20th percentile? Why would that be?
It's a suburban area, if lowest 5.5 and 5, and we apply 5.7, it's inside our low and high range.
This is very low, this is at the lowest end of the range?
Yes.
Okay.
And very well supported by page 9, office space. This range real sales, actual sales between 5.1 to 6.54%.
And
You can see this rent of Henderson and Notre Dame, this small gross floor area similar to subject property, 5.1%. Capitalization rates, its actual sale in 2017 showed us.
so, and the selection of comparables, these were yours?
Correct?
No, these are the same ones that are used for several properties today, are they not?
Correct. But you can see on map number 3, on page number 3, I try to keep close to subject property.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Diane?
No question.
Tracy?
No question.
No question. On with your presentation.
Owner-occupied building on Stradbrook, and so we applied, we looked to the market for rent, and to give you an idea of the ones we looked at on page 4. We're looking at office buildings in close proximity to it. 215 Gary, 305 Broadway, 125 Gary, 330 St. Mary, 175 Hargrave. Those are, the last two are Superior buildings, and the others are more office oriented. Also on page 7, In the report, there's in downtown miscellaneous, there's a building at 55 Donald, and that is about a block away, and their asking is $12.50 a square foot. 52 Donald is asking $8.50 a square foot. So those are in the direct, like I said, about a block away. So we ended up at $13 a foot. Likely just to recognize the fact that it has some of its own parking and has a visibility for a user who would want to display their image. So I was just about to make a slip in the tongue of another office building in the area, and I won't do that. So the $13 rate would be supported by the market. For vacancy, we looked at the Johnson report again, and this would likely be classified as a miscellaneous property, a suburban miscellaneous. Sorry, you've only got downtown here, miscellaneous at 10.9. The suburban miscellaneous is actually 7.6, so we've applied 8.1, so we're right in the ballpark. The non-recoverables, I think this is a typo because this is an owner-occupied building, so they don't generate non-recoverables. So I'm going to change that from $5,000 to $2,500, which is 5%. So that changes my NOI to $41,981. And for a cap rate, not investment grade, not one that would make the Collier's study, but nevertheless, there would be some interest in it from a small-time investor users. And I think 8% is, I think it'd be a bit more competitive in the market at 8%. So that changes my market value to $524,763, rounded to $525,000. That works out to $128 a square foot, and I think that one of the issues with a property like this is you do have to look at sales per square foot on that, because you could be looking at an end user more so than an investment user, and I know I didn't enter this into evidence verbally. Johnson's report has the average list sale price of office in the city at $144.15 per square foot. So I think our 128 is right in the range. The year before it was 102. So there is some, off year or years where some sales go through and some don't. 2017's 418,000 square feet sold. So I think we're in that ballpark of $128 to $144 a square foot. And that would be my number for presentation. For the record is $525,000. But that number could go as high as $600,000, representing the Johnson rate at $144 per square foot. That's my presentation.
Question?
The Johnson's report of June 2018 includes reference, correct?
No.
On page 22, Colliers International Winnipeg cap rate estimation, we talk about downtown office, yes? And your downtown office low 5.5 and high 6.25%, correct?
No.
No questions.
Sorry, I'll finish answering that then. It's not downtown for one. It's suburban, as you just said. And secondly, it's certainly not an A, and it doesn't even fit in the B category, as we've gone over this already today. It is sub B.
Tracy, questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Diane?
No.
No questions for me? Let's move on to the next property. You guys need a break soon? Or?
Just for right now.
Good. I like this one. We'll take one more round at it at least. Might need to appreciate it. 677 Portage Avenue. When you are ready.
File number 19-4504, roll number 13050022500. Address is 677 Portage Avenue. Owner is Life Unlimited Inc. We are well on the property as of stand of January 1st, 2020, based on economic condition of April 1st, 2018. This appeal with respect to the amount of the assessed value only, based on the evidence in this report and this assessor opinion that the market value of subject property as of April 1st, 2018, $898,000, and that the 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. The subject property located northwest portion of the city of Winnipeg on page 13, subject location map, in air quarters on page 14. The subject size has irregular shape of 5,823 square feet. The one-story masonry building was constructed in 1968 with basement 4,159 square feet, leasable area 9,248 square feet. That include mezzanine 1,844 square feet. On page 3, I did presented 7 comparables. My base comparables number 6 on Portage Avenue lease for $14.75. We did assess the property at $8.60. Our media of 7, my comparable $16 per square foot. Map of my comparables of map below, this road the dot of subject property. With rent $8.60, overall rate $8.60. Our potential rent just close to $79,000. We did apply vacancy laws. Vacancy 5.5% standard for these office buildings. We allowed for 2% not recoverable expenses and shortfall for shortfall allowance per square foot to account for not recoverable expenses during the time of vacancy, $7. Our overall capitalization rate 7.8%, so our estimate value $898,000, and I recommend you to confirm this assessed value. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Newfield?
Yes, page 4 and 5, was this from the model?
Correct?
Do you inspect it?
No?
And you haven't confirmed these dimensions, you haven't been in the building to see what sort of space this is?
This building has basement area 4,159 square feet, same main area plus mezzanine 1,834 square feet.
And what does the owner's statement say on page 15?
Page 15, 7,000.
7,089
Owner
square
occupied, yes, correct.
Now, did you determine what that difference is? Is it 2,159 square feet?
For owner-occupied building, we use full square footage of leasable area of gross floor area.
I'm asking if the difference was 2,159 by the math.
By BOMA, when we assess owner-occupied building, we use outside perimeter measurement. It's our gross floor area.
By who? Did you
Would
say
we
by
estimate by,
Did you say
by
Owner.
owner-occupied
You
buildings?
didn't say by BOMA, did you?
That's what I thought she said.
Did you say by BOMA?
Yes, standard for owner-occupied building. We use BOMA standard.
I think you're mistaken. So, but is the math difference to 2159, or have you worked that out? I just want us to determine where we are apart from it. It is the substandard basement area, is it not?
Full basement area, 4,159 square feet.
Okay, so you haven't been down there, and is it separately demised?
I didn't been in basement.
Can it be rented? Basement on the market.
You can provide us with this information.
Can it be rented?
It's owner-occupied building,
Okay.
period.
Where's the
It's
furnace?
occupied whole building.
Where are the mechanical parts of the building? Are they in the basement?
That's why our gross floor area 10,000 square feet and we are leasable only 9.
Well, I see that you have 4159 square feet per floor, and your, which is the plan and the basement area, the gross area includes a mezzanine, does it not?
Yes, it has mezzanine 1,834 square feet of mezzanine area.
So do you know that BOMA provides for removal of vertical penetrations?
If it's several tenants occupied building, yes, we apply it. If it's owner occupied, we don't do anything.
And so you believe this has been measured by the BOMA system?
Yes.
Did the assessor?
I
measure
believe
BOMA?
that this gross floor area 10,000 square feet.
Which year of BOMA?
Page 1, gross floor area 10,154
BOMA
square feet.
changed their standards. Is it BOMA 1 or BOMA 2, do you know?
No answer.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Diane,
No questions.
Tracy,
No questions.
Mr. Neufeld, on with your presentation.
There used to be a bank purchased by a chiropractor, and for a while he had a tenant on the mezzanine level, which is the reason we're including it, because he did prove it was possible to rent it. The basement is occupied by an area of approximately 2,000 square feet, which is an exercise room for the chiropractor's patients. The remainder of it is service space. There are stairwells, 2 sets of stairwells. There's mechanical equipment downstairs, and there's also the vault. Now, the vault was the most interesting adaptation of a bank you'll ever see. The chiropractor put his x-ray machine inside the vault. So, I guess it's a pretty good use for an x-ray machine. You certainly deaden the impact of the rays outside. It is an older bank, and as such, they were built with a lot of redundancy, a lot of very, very good buildings. However, they were never known for their thermal efficiency. They just overpowered the environment with their equipment. And it is an expensive building to run because it wasn't meant for thermal efficiency. It was meant for put as many units as we need to make it work. We had looked at some rents on the owner-occupied area, and as you can see, we did have, we originally had the mezzanine was originally rented for $12,000 gross, and we're still using that number. It works out to go to $7 a foot net for 930 feet. We're putting $11 on the main, and then $4 on the part in the basement that contributes to it. And the owner is using it for, like I said, they're laid down with rubber mats in the basement, and it's for their patients to exercise before or after treatment. The rents we were looking at, there was a number of downtown rents we looked at, also 83 Sherbrooke, which is 2 blocks to the south. We have 3 office rents in there going from $8.59 to $13.41. And one is medical, and on the main floor, and then the other 2 are second floor office. So you can see that the main floor is $13.41, and the upper levels are $8.59 and $9.93. As well, there was, and I was just looking at outside the central business area, a bit further down, 470 River at $12.50. It's a smaller space. And other than that, I think most of these are in the downtown area or in the suburbs. Basement rents, again, page 4, a number of basement rents, and as basic accommodation, this would be similar to either number 1 or number 2, likely number 2. Well, dance format might be close, $4. We picked $4. It could be $5. I wouldn't argue one way or another. And that's what we've applied for our rents, 11, 7, and 4, and then an 8%. And again, this is we looked at downtown rates because it's close by as an office class D, and it was actually incorrect in that it should be suburban office. But I think I mentioned earlier that that number was 7.9, so it's not going to change our calculation much. Non-recoverables, 5%. Structural reserve, and this is the thermal problem with the building. Shortfall, we're looking at actuals on tax, estimates and utilities, and an estimate of $2 on repair and maintenance, leaving us with an NOI of $45,096. As far as its investment value, it's certainly not investment value. It's an interesting adaptive reuse of a bank building, and if this were located on Corridon instead of the corner of Sherbrooke and Portage, it would certainly demand a good number, but it's not. It has no parking. Well, it does now. They actually have to make an arrangement with the Lions Club next door, who used to control the entire back lane, but they've now managed to at least get a few parking stalls out of that. Their clients, though, do park on the street. And high visibility, but basically a poor location for many uses. Where you have a facility like theirs, they've managed to make it work. Our value, again, it's a poor investment value. You're relying on basement rents. You have limited access. So we're looking at 8.75% and a value of $515,000. The previous year was $649, and that was the result of my net operating income and a cap rate of 7.5%. I did not appeal that decision because the new chair of our board decided that. Thought I wasn't consulting on his first day in the job. That's my presentation. I think it was, okay.
Questions?
Questions?
Tracy?
Can you explain to me about the non-recoverables here? And I've noticed in the last couple of files as well. How did you arrive at that number?
Where we have actual non-recoverables in an investment building or a leased building, we'll use them, and where we don't, we'll apply 5%. And where we're getting that from is, of course, we gave you all our rebuttal information,
Yeah.
but our last page is a calculation of non-recoverables. These are Collier's managed properties, and we went through them. And the arguments on non-recoverables, reading through all the information, what people are missing on the collection of non-recoverables is you shouldn't be looking for high non-recoverables because you had a bad year, because that's not the valuation standard. So page 44, those people had a bad year. These people didn't. So you should use a stabilized amount. And you notice this line is popping in at about 7%, 2 and 5. That's what we're applying. Our average was higher than that, But again, in valuation, you're responsible to look for the highest and best use and not do something on a chronic problem unless one actually exists. And then you look at other factors. But for a typical building, 5% for non-recoverables is the norm, 2%, or a rate per square foot for structural is. And this is just a sampling of the Collier's database. We have 86 properties that we reviewed. We actually manage about 120 or so, and we have decades of performance on all of these. So these I took because they were without abnormalities, like there were no semi-gross leases which skew off your non-recoverables. You can't use a semi-gross lease or a gross lease in this sort of calculation. And then we left from there. And so there's some properties, and these incidentally are stacked, the same ones are beside each other. So for example, and there's a date error on here. There is no December 2019. It is because that just happened today. No, it was a typo there. It's a year off. But I was just looking for one that stuck out in memory. In the middle of page 42, this is the same building. 1 year, 154,717, non-recoverable, 16.78%. The following year, 1.75%. So what we have there is bad year, good year, stabilized at 5% on that basis. And it had a bad year because it lost one tenant at turnover. They had costs to fix the building back to code because code upgrades are now required. They had leasing commissions, and those were all calculated. We did not use tenant improvement costs in here, except we did use some tenant repairs in there, but not a turnover new tenant improvements, because those could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they make our report look silly. So we stuck to that. We do use leasing commissions because that's a fact of life in our world. A building is going to turn over every 5 years, a space in it, because that's how long leases are. Multi-tenant properties, you're constantly paying commissions. It's out of the owner's pocket. It goes into the expenses. It's captured by the 5%. Now, we can use actuals. They could be higher, they could be lower, depending on your performance. A DCF model, discounted cash flow model, will show those, and that's typically what you use on investment properties, and they'll go to actuals. They'll actually do a table that said, we have 10 tenants. Every 5 years, someone's going to re-up. Out of those, 20% are not going to re-up, so we're going to have to spend some money on the space. We're going to have to pay a commission, and then we're going to get a new tenant after a period of vacancy. That's how it's done in the real world. So we're just trying to mirror those costs, the bottom line to the landlord, and it is always a requirement for non-recoverables.
Thank you.
Pam?
No questions, just a comment. I know 2 other banks that are dentist office and use the vault for their x-rays as well.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the problems? The vaults, they can't take them out.
They can't.
No.
And there's nothing they can do in
And
that
then
space.
under the vault is also dead space.
Yes.
Because it has to be supported on.
Yeah.
That's part of our wasted space in the basement. It's poured concrete, nothing to do with it.
I mean, good whiskey.
That's not politically correct, I'm sorry. None of us here would even think of drinking at all.
Whiskey.
What time is it?
Right about now?
Shall we take a break before we start the next one? Good. I need one. Let's move into this. 814 Aaron. When you are ready.
File number 19-2108, roll number 13011096000, owner Rudy's Auto Service Limited. We are valuing the property as it stands of January 1st, 2020, based on economic condition as April 1st, 2018. This appeal is with respect to the amount of assessed value only. Based on the evidence in this report, this assessor opinions that the market value of the subject property as of April 1st, 2018 $578,000 in that. The 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. The subject property is located northwest portion of the city of Winnipeg, page 13. Air photo of subject property and more photos on page 14. The subject size has a rectangle shape of 8,466 square feet. Improvements, one and two-story improvements was constructed in 1954. Visible area 4,140 square feet. This property was sold in 2015 for $425,000. Subject property occupied by Rudy Auto Service Limited. Lease started in 2018 for $13.90. On page 3, I presented 6 comparables. On portrait, wall, my first subject property, we estimate subject property on April 1st, reference day 2018, for 4,140 square feet and $10.66. My comparables, office space in auto-related space, with media of $14 per square foot. On page 4, estimation market value of subject property, market potential rent $44,000. We did apply 5.5% vacancy, 2% for expenses, and 7% of shortfall to account for not recoverable expenses during time of vacancy. Our capitalization rate 6.8%, that's supported by page 6. Our table, it's inside range 6.2 to 7.3. So our estimate value of subject property $578,000. My comparables on page 15, it's a financial statement. 2 tenants inside, it's gross lease, 4,000 square feet. On page 17, Rudy Auto Service Limited has neighboring properties on 814 Erin is red dot on across of Erin Street. We have another property, 807 Erin Street, auto-related properties. On page 18, start my comparables. Comparables on Portrait Avenue. I have 2 comparables, 2 leases in 2017-2016 for $20.34 and $15.50 in 2 different buildings. On page 19, another property on Portrait Avenue, photo presented on bottom list for $12.50. On page 20, office space on Wall Street, close to the subject property, $20.86. On Portrait 1075, 2 leases on page 21. It's office space for $12 per square foot. My rent comparables very well support our $10.66. It's fair. Based on my density report, it's my opinion that value of subject property as April 1st, 2018, $578,000, and that the 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. Thank you, Commissioner.
Questions, Mr. Little?
The values on page 4 and 5, are they from the model?
Yes,
And your comparables, and you select those yourself?
correct.
And what's the subject being used for?
It's office space.
Have you inspected this?
No,
You list the owner as Rudy's Auto Service, page 1, the tenant, Rudy's Auto Service, on page 2. So it's safe to assume this is owner occupied?
yes. On page 2, I just try to put what rental provided to us.
If this were classified differently, perhaps as an industrial building, would the numbers from your model be different?
It's office space.
It's not the question. If it were classified as an industrial, would the numbers be different?
It will be different parameters.
Your comparables, did you make an adjustment from your comparables, as most of them are on Portage Avenue or major streets?
Yes, it is comparables. For example, on Portage, $20, comparable number 1, comparable number 4, $20. So if you do adjustment, it's $10.60, it's reasonable.
Now, or is it on your comparables, sorry, 1 second, I have to get your index page. So 3341 Portage is a service shop on Portage Avenue, is that correct?
Correct?
And number 2 is a auto dealer. Now, have you inspected the actual records in the city of Winnipeg on the dimensions of that property?
I see what they reported to us, all information presented in my paper on page 3.
Well, if you had a different measurement on the space within your own city records, which should you be presenting? The one that the owner presented, or the one that's in the city records?
It's reported to us.
Okay. So you are aware, though, that it is 7,950 square feet, including the upper level?
Okay.
And 575 wall, I was just looking at a picture of that. Is that correct that it says college on it?
It's office space, 2-floor building built in 1985 and leased for 2015.
MC College, so it's some form of training facility?
Yeah, it's office
Okay.
building.
And 1075 Portage, this was the former driver's licensing building, and what is in there now?
Penguins surrendered claim trust and school board. Penguins.
Pardon me?
Penguins surrender claim trust, first comparables, and second, Penguins school board.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Diane?
None, thank you.
Tracy?
No questions, thank you.
No questions. Rocky, on to your report.
The site is called Rudy's Automotive Service, and what they do is they sell decals and from the site. And vehicle lettering, signs, and graphics. Page 2, picture right on the outside. Office, there might be office in there, but it's primarily a working building, owner occupied, and it should be classified as industrial. They don't service automobiles in there. The primary use is industrial, as are virtually all the buildings on Wall and Aaron Street between Portage and Notre Dame. We looked at rents up and down the area and looked at industrial rents on page 3. Yes. I don't know where the $10 came from. I wish someone could answer that. We have several rents in the area. I was just at a hearing the other day of like the $6 and $7 range. So I don't support $10, but that's what we put in there. I don't have any alternate information to give you, so I'm not changing it. The vacancy rate is an industrial rate of 5.2%. That, of course, is also inaccurate, as that was the not the correct page to take from, which we will not change either. But the actual number should have been 5.7%. Not much of a difference. Non-recoverables are using 5% owner-occupied property, just a standard allowance. Structural reserve, again, towards the higher end, 1954 building. Obviously, we're going to have to expect some work in it, especially in terms of the quality. And incidentally, when I say it's not office, page 2, that's a window air conditioner sticking outside. That's not central air conditioning as you would expect in an office. That's the little office up front for the clerical portion of their job that has a little window. This is industrial. Using a cap rate of 8.5%, which would be a miscellaneous industrial rate, and a value of $396,000. The last assessment of $425,000, and that was an assessor's written recommendation from last year, and he was chasing the sale. The assessor's workup is mistaken in that it has been classified incorrectly. That's my presentation.
Question.
This question, page 2, on bottom line, are you alert that it's a different property photos? Correct?
Sorry?
It's different property, building improvements. Subject property is from another side.
Are you saying that that's the wrong picture?
Yeah, it's wrong picture.
The one on page 2?
Yes.
Assessors page 14, the subject is
Same.
blue and white. It's blue and white, and it says 814 here. And then applicants, page 2, it's a brown brick building.
It's different building. That's not the building. Yeah.
I think you're going to have to swear in and answer that question. You prepared this, so he's on. You can explain what you did. Can you do that?
Yep, we can swear in.
Can you just affirm?
Yeah.
Please say your name.
Here's your info.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's so seriously.
Yeah.
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 If you could just give me one more
It
second.
goes this way.
Two pictures.
Mhm. Okay, that's just here.
What do you do?
So that's here, but this is here. Are you talking about the whole one, or just the?
That's what I'm not sure.
Yeah.
814 is just this one.
That
And
would
then
be
it has a
this one
second
here.
floor in the back? Yeah.
So he's right
Did you
here.
have 2 floors on yours?
Well, it kind of looks
Yeah,
like
you
there's
did.
2 floors in the back.
And this one here is not 2 floors, it's a single floor.
Behind.
That, the second floor back there is this building.
It's a back split.
There's no 2 stories in there.
I can look from the parking lot here to the back, just what you're looking at here,
Yeah.
the second story.
And then, so is the purpose of the building still automotive decals?
That looks like a motel.
Office building for,
Okay, go
I did
ahead.
make an error identifying the property, because it's the neighbor, but the valuation would still stand, as it is still an automotive related. It's not, I guess, vehicle lettering, but it is automotive.
It's not the vehicle lettering.
Not the lettering.
No, Rudy is a client of ours, and he has a garage, and
Yeah.
he's got service sites.
He has 807 Aaron as well, so I would imagine that I just looked at the lettering and
825
misidentified the photo.
Yeah, I think the photo says 824 or
It's
824.
24, that's
that's
his,
it, yeah.
that's his too.
No, he has 807. I don't know if the 824 isn't his too. It's just I misidentified it because it was similar use.
Across the street. 807 is across the street.
807 is across the street. There,
Yeah, you can see here there's a second floor in the back of the house.
Hmm?
You can see in this picture, page 2 of the applicants, you can see the second story in the back.
Page 2 of the assessors.
Page 2 of the assessors?
I beg your pardon, of the assessor's report.
no, yeah, I'm figuring out exactly what I did. See, on my page 2 there, I have this little, whatever you want
You
to
got
call
the
it.
right building, yeah.
That's the right building on this above
Yeah.
picture, yeah, and they're connected, so I just figured they were the same building, I guess, when I took the picture. Or when I took
So
the.
that building, oh, yeah,
It is,
it's
it's.
a zero
that's-
lot line.
That's the picture. That's
The white
building.
building at the far corner
Yeah.
is the picture here.
Yeah,
It's a 0 lot line then, on that one side.
correct, yeah, and it's, the lot line would be, yeah.
Was it 0 lot line everywhere?
Around the building it appears, yeah, no, and then looks like it's about exactly half of the plot.
Yeah. So the second story is that little tiny bit in the back.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Is the second story then owned by both properties or just the one property?
That's right, yeah.
same owner, same property, yeah. And front 1 story and back 2 story. So it's addition.
But the total square footage, is that correct?
Correct. Total square footage, 4,000.
4140?
Yeah, I took that from last year's.
Okay.
On page 3, applicant, residents, who select these comparables, who ask questions. On page number 3, who select comparables, who should ask questions.
This is a table of industrial rents that we've been relying on. They come from the records of our company and our transactions. And they've been selected on the basis of being clean and free of influences. So there are no repayments of tenant improvements or inducements or creative financing in them. So this is our long list, and in order to look at the subject, we would be looking towards the higher end of the range typically, and we don't have, and then there are a few more, those are older ones on the next page. So, and then
It's not a good range. I will admit. A lot of errors.
Okay, our subject property, office space, auto related, correct?
Pardon me?
Our subject property, it's office space for
It's-
auto related.
It's industrial, automotive, related to his business. Mr. F. has no desire to run an office. He services cars. So this is part of his complex. That much we're sure about.
But inside building, it's office space and huge parking lot.
No, it's partial office. You can see there's a rooftop unit on the front, but there's no rooftop units in the rear. So that would indicate an office portion in the front and warehousing in the back.
No more questions? Tracy?
Rooftop units, you're talking air conditioning?
Yeah.
Oh, and
there's-
that's,
see,
and
there's
that's
a-
what makes it an office?
No, no, that would be my evidence of why the front is an office and the back isn't.
Ah, I see.
Because if it's office grade, it can't be just a little window air conditioning unit. You should see a package unit or some sort of central system, otherwise it wouldn't be. We've worked for him for several years, and with the exception of this mistake, we know him to be a garage service operator, as evidenced by his name, Ruby's Auto.
I don't see from the pictures how he would be servicing autos.
No, it's part of his other operation.
So this is the office that services the
Office, there's
auto.
office in the front, and I believe there's parts in the rear.
So that's why you're thinking that it should be industrial?
Well,
Because
the
it's
na-
mostly office,
the-
but part
It's the neighborhood.
warehouse.
In the neighborhood, as an example, I am in front of me, and I know I haven't introduced it as evidence, is the Johnson report, and virtually every property on Wall and Aaron is in the industrial side, because that's this neighborhood. So we have all of his neighbors, I mean, they're all, if you look at the neighborhood, it's, there's a bakery, there's auto, stainless, auto, clear line storage, and so that is the neighborhood. Kmart refrigeration, WA refrigeration, Grip Freedom, which is actually the garage, Freddy's garage.
Okay, thank you. So you're saying that the neighborhood is industrial, so that the
Yes.
property should be industrial?
Well, there are many mixed uses in it, and it's basically a small user sort of neighborhood where there would be a industrial part in the back, a shop, a place to put your truck, and in the front is your office. So you would be doing your out calls out of there, use this as your headquarters, and have your industrial part in the back, because that's what it's zoned for. These are all M1 zones, so it's light industrial, contractor style outfits. Embarrassed.
I just want to be clear, that's all.
But,
Thank you.
how do I say this? I do have a schedule here of different rates. I can't present them as evidence. We will support the $10. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I know the occupant. Do I have to stay out of this? With the question I'm going to ask?
I don't know. Do you like them or not?
I'm asking because I don't know the answer.
Well, it depends on how close a friend he is, right?
My husband's boss's brother used to be, know him very well.
Do you have Christmas
I
dinner
should
with
step out, yes.
It's up to you,
I just
though.
realized
Well, yeah.
When he said Rudy, right?
No, that last thing.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh dear. Okay.
Well, I trust you're going to do the right thing.
I'm just asking
yeah,
because
that's all.
I'm being very honest.
It goes to you. You make the decision whether you can be near it.
Well, I'm very trustworthy.
I know, I think you are.
So-
Winnipeg's a small town.
I'm
Are you okay with
I'm
this,
just letting you know
statement?
that I do know the
Yeah,
owner.
and she's cleared that up with you guys, and you're.
And
both
you don't
okay.
insert your own knowledge of it. You have to
I'm
listen
not
to the-
going to ask anything. I was going to ask a question. I'm not going to ask the
Okay.
question now because, and nor will I pass judgment.
Because we're done with it anyway.
Yeah.
right? We're done. She's gonna let us deal with it.
Right.
Teresa and I'll fight for now.
Well, I just don't want to.
Let's go to the next one. 1581 Kamina. Oh, we're getting there.
File number 19-4532, roll number 030-66202-000, owner it is 4847432, Manitoba, Canada. We are valuing the property as a stand of January 1st, 2020, based on the economic condition April 1st, 2018. This appeal is with respect to the amount of the assessed value only. Based on evidence in this report, it is assessor opinion that the market value of the subject property as April 1st, 2018, $564,000. In that, the 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. The subject property is located southwest portion of the city of Winnipeg. Page 13 and 14 presented subject location map and a photo of my report. The subject size has a rhombus shape of 5,758 square feet. The improvements is one-story wood frame building was built in 1987. Leasable area 4,254 square feet. On page 2, more photo of subject property. We have sale history in 2007 for $400,000. On page 3, rent comparables for subject property first line. We assessed this property here, mistake. I did for $4,254. That's $11.43. It's supported on page 4. My overall rent. My comparable 6 comparables map presented on map below. It's on Pembina, Harrow, and more Pembina, with my media of $15.49. We did assess this property at $11.43. It's fair and reasonable. For this property, we did apply 20% vacancy loss, 2% expenses, shortfall 7%, the capitalization rate 5.7%. So our estimate value of subject property $564,000 should be confirmed. Thank you.
Mr. Winfield, questions?
Thank you. Page 4 and 5, I take it was done by the model. I'm going to guess that the vacancy was an override. Anything else overridden?
Nothing.
Okay. And you selected the comparables in page 3?
Correct.
Have you inspected this property?
No.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Tracy?
No questions, thank you.
Diane?
No.
I've got no questions. Mr. Winfield?
Thank you. Can't trip me up on this one. This is my accountant's office, so I go there an awful lot. Now, do you know Mabel? You don't know Mabel?
No. Have you inspected this property?
And if you did, Mabel would be wouldn't mind if you said something bad one way or another. She just doesn't care. So this used to be Warehouse 1 store, and after they vacated it, she purchased it and moved her accounting office there. Developed one side of it and left the other side available for development for a tenant. And she was looking for a tenant that's would be a good fit for her. The problems with getting a tenancy in there have always been the same, lack of parking. It's fine for her because she's got a couple of spaces at the back, enough for her and her staff, and occasionally for a client. And it's more of a working accountant's office, don't see a lot of people in there. So we have had a chronic vacancy in there since she's purchased it. As I said, a number of people. I brought her 2 clients. They couldn't work out a deal. So it is, I would concur with the assessor's workup on that basis. And We have used 15%, we have used different numbers. Our NOI is 28,000, and the big difference, of course, is the treatment of non-recoverables. So that's essentially our difference when all the numbers, the assessor has a higher vacancy and but a higher rent, and we have a higher reserve and higher non-recoverables, and our shortfall is lower than theirs. So we're sticking by our 28,315 and just appreciate that the differences would be a semantic difference when all things considered except for the non-recoverable costs. Cap rate, I'm thinking that, you know, applying a big vacancy means that the cap rate has been dealt with. So I would probably think I would like to see a lower rate than this, probably at 8%. Because you can't punish a building with vacancy and then the cap as well. And a market vacancy is 8% for properties like this. So that gives us a value of 353,938, rounded to 354,000. There's no such thing as a 5.7% rate. And truthfully, buildings like this will probably sell for an owner's use, and the purchase was an owner's motivation for their business. She had her shop was on Nairn Avenue, and her people, she all lived in White Ridge, and there was a motivation to get closer to home. That's why that explains the original purchase price. On the market, if you found a similarly motivated person, potentially you could sell it for more than this, but being offered in Pembina Highway where it is, you could see a value at $100 a foot, $110 a foot on a sale price. Income doesn't come close to what the direct comparison would on something like this. And the way to modify it isn't to use a ridiculous cap rate to get it down to the level. The way to evaluate is to give up on the income approach, because there's no such thing as a low cap rate on a bad building. If I were appraising this, I would head toward the direct comparison approach and look for a number of $100 to $110 a foot, given the poor parking issues on it. That's my presentation. And by the way, 110 a foot is about $462,000. But I wasn't going to manufacture a number to go there. Sometimes income and direct comparison cannot be reconciled, and we're stuck with income here. So my request would be 462. Thank you.
Questions?
No questions.
Tracy?
Just there's a small discrepancy in square footage.
Oh, well, when, yeah, big discrepancy. Why have I got two different numbers?
You got 4321.
Yeah, I know, and it's 4254 plan. When the building was demised, it became a multi-tenant building, and the common area should have been taken off. So the number is 4,200.
4254?
No, that's planned, but there would have been an adjustment on the at the back. There's a common bathroom for both units, and there's a rear exit, and in the front there's a vestibule. So in looking at BOMA, what's going to happen is the vestibule gets chopped up and split between the two, but the back, where the mechanical area, then gets subtracted from the total. So that's how I put 4,200. That's how I came to it, because I've been in there so many times, and I've been using the bathroom too, so I know how big they are. 4,200 is the appropriate number. And I see Mabel put in a different number too. I shouldn't let her do my taxes anymore. You know what? Err on the side of caution. I wouldn't. 4254 plan area would be used on the direct comparison, which at 110 a foot works up to 468,000. which is 1,000 more than last year. That's an acceptable calculation as well. And
That's it, thanks.
If we keep this up, we might get that number up to about 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
ask a question, go, ask a question.
No, I'm not asking any questions, no. Don't need to recalculate again.
no, and you know, I'm being unfair, I think, to both the assessor and the panel by changing these numbers, but I think this year is just one where we just haven't had the time to devote to deep thought. So yes.
That concludes that matter then. Everybody's asked their questions? Let's move on to the next one, item 8. Item 8 will be 1483 Pembina Highway.
Page number 1, I did mistake. As the 2000 existing 2020 assessed value should be confirmed. File number 19-4777, roll number 0307 0069000, owner Barry Holding Inc. We are valuing the property as it stands at January 1st, 2020, based on the economic condition April 1st, 2018. This appeal is respect to the amount of the assessed value only. Based on the evidence presented in this report, in this assessor opinion, the market value of the subject property of April 1st, 2018, $1,911,000, and that the 2020 assessed value of $1,616,000 should be confirmed. The subject property is located at southwest portion of the city of Winnipeg. It's located on page 13. Good photos of subject property. We have subject location map and photo of subject property on page 14. The subject size has a roundabout shape of 10,897 square feet. The three-story masonry improvement was constructed in 1969. We have several leases inside building. I present a few of them. On page 3, we can find 6 comparables. First, line and subject property. Appraised on April 1st, 2018, our reference date, for around 12,000 square feet for $12.83. My comparables located same on Pembina, Harrow, and with media of $15.49. So subject matter and $12.83, fair and should be confirmed. On page 4, market estimation of subject property. With total area around 12,000 square feet, our potential rent 154,000. We apply 5.5% vacancy with standards of this type of buildings. Expenses 2% expenses allowances for advertising, promotion, professional fees, structural repairs, plus shortfall allowance per square foot of $7 to account for not recoverable expenses during time of vacancy. 7.2% vacancy rate that supported on page 6. It's inside range 6.2 to 7.3. Our estimate value of $1,911,000. On page 15, we have financial statement in the rent roll. On page 17, we have income statement. All leases on page 2021. On page 22, 23, it's a floor area, diagram of building. We have lower levels, main floor. Floor plan has extra 2 floors, but it will be similar to main floor area. On page 24, my comparables. Comparables on Pembina building 1966. Lease started in 2016 for $13.84. Another property on Pembina, 3-floor building, lease started in 2016 for $19.74. On page 26, Pembina Highway lease started in 2017, building 9087, 2-floor building for $14.98. Rose Street on page 27, lease $16 and $17 per square foot, and plus lease on page 28 on Pembina for $14.14. We did apply $12.83. It's fair and reasonable, and the assessed value of $1,616,000 should be confirmed. Thank you.
Questions?
Page 4 and 5, so this is the value that you made to initially, or to change the value to 1911, is that correct?
Correct.
So you did not supply the original model number?
No.
You know what sort of potential rent that was, by any chance?
Right now, $12.83.
Right, 1283. Now on page 2, that's the rent roll, correct? Ranging between
Yeah.
$8 and $10?
Yes.
Okay, so your workup is a fair bit higher than the actual, is that correct?
Yeah, because I estimate market rent.
Okay.
Subject rent can be not at market level.
So
And
all,
plus, I want to bring your attention, rent start 2003, 2004.
2016. So all these 9 rents aren't market then?
No, it's
They're all under $10 or less.
subject lease can be not at market level.
And the statement, your potential rent, the one you presented, which obviously wasn't the original, is $153,000, and your statement on page 17 indicates it's $108,775. Is that correct?
Correct?
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Diane?
No question.
Tracy?
No question.
On their rent roll, where does it show the basement? 657? Divided at $8. It ended, well, do you have any comparables on the rents for basement?
No.
This was assessed at $999,000 last year? Is that correct?
No.
I don't see any.
That is brand new heating. I don't have this information.
Any major work done in this building? I don't see any permits. I think there's something that says permit on it. Development permit, City of Winnipeg. There's no value on what they did.
Plumbing
for
adjustment was
occupancy
done in
only.
2019, electrical in 2019.
The what?
Plumbing, electrical, done in 2019.
That's all post.
Oops. Office alteration was done in 2017 on main floor. And another office alteration 2017, 2015, 14, 14.
We don't have any of that in here, do we?
Electrical was done in
What
2012.
page is this on?
Plumbing was, it's my information.
Oh, it's yours.
about
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was plumbing and electrical work was done in 2012, 2015. Several interior alteration was done in 2014 to today.
What page are we looking at?
We don't have it, she's just giving verbal
Okay.
on permits and
No,
stuff.
sorry, I missed, how many permits were there then?
Going from 19 back, we're up to 2014 now, I think. 12.
12 permits, okay.
And before 2012, electrical and plumbing was done in 2004, so it's a very well maintained building.
Okay. Mr. Neufeld, on with your presentation.
Okay, good news, I'm not changing anything. He did the workup, but it's actually good, because this is the property he was working with on case management.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. We're using actual rent, 108,806, and the building was full at that time. Building has had some vacancy problems in the past, but generally it's been full now at 108,806 paid rent. Applying a market vacancy, small error, I would use 7.6% rather than 7.7, but that's from the Johnson report, miscellaneous suburban. Non-recoverables, not 5%, 2.5%, because that's what they were in the statement. So when you're stuck with the actuals and you do have a tenanted building, sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. So today, this property, it's only 2.5, about 2.5, a little under 2.5%. Structural reserve, we're using 50 cents a foot, and that is because of the costs associated with this building. This is every time there's a tenant turnover and there's a requirement for a new occupancy permit, this building's been a little more hard hit by code upgrades, and I think the assessor read out a lot of electrical and plumbing, and that's been the problem. So you would need a larger structural reserve to deal with it. Shortfall is actual, with the exception of the utilities have been changed to a generic number, leaving us an NOI of 86,265. We're using a cap rate of 8.5%, and this falls outside the, this is an actual investment property, a pretty poor one, but it would not fit in our study, being inferior obviously from our standards. So we would start off by looking at on page 26, which is our actual rates. A B is 7.5 to 8.25, so it should go upwards from there based on that. And some actual cap rate of suburban offices. Page 36, 905 Waverly at 7.93. That's superior. That was Stantec. Now it's leased to 24/7. Owner is Neptune Properties. And I had another suburban office here somewhere. No, the rest is retail. Okay, so I did have one suburban office. When we looked at it on a quantitative viewpoint, I think the big issue with it is the style of it. It's a three-story walk-up style. So the first level is basement, and the second level you walk up to. So there's nothing at grade. It gives you a problem with barrier-free for future use. Adaptation. is going to be more difficult, so it's going to be harder to, and because it's so small, the adaptation is quite costly, so that would necessitate a cap at 8.5. That gets us to $1,015,000, and I just want to give you some of the assessment history on this because it's actually pertinent. In 2014, it was $1,188,000. We appealed to municipal board, and we came to an agreement a few months ago at $910,000. In 2016, we had a decision at $966,000. In 2018, it was at $999,000, and that was a recommendation from the assessor, not a value. And so now we're at $1,015,000, which follows the trend for modest growth. And the difference in the numbers is that generally the vacancy has been improving, and it's been improving because the rent hasn't changed much in all of that time, and so it's becoming a cheaper alternative on the market. So the point is, we could have a higher rent, we'd have a higher vacancy. Well, you have one or the other, and so the owner's following the religion of full. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, the policy of full. I'd rather be full. So that's called market equilibrium. It's not called, it's following the market. It's just higher rent, higher vacancy. And the assessor, incidentally, on the presentation of the rent roll, the range in rates from 10 to 8 is generally a reflection on where they're located in the building. The top rent at $8 is the basement space, and there's a few others down there. And the best rent is got on what's called the first floor, which is up a step. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Questions? Tracy?
Again, with the square footage.
Yeah.
Square footage.
Assessor has 11,971, you have 11,114.
On page 21 of the assessor's rate, and I think I don't know if we've included this, is the rent roll. So the owner has 11,114 rent roll.
Diane?
No questions.
No questions. Let's get the last one then.
It's
done.
Done.
Oh, that's right, that's what you guys came to with.
It's
It's already been changed?
exempt, so it's still.
We don't care what the number is.
Where did I put it?
It's a church.
Probably could have already payment.
Probably still have to read it in though.
Is that 1483?
The chair off the table.
1563, what did I do with
You
it?
probably put it in here.
Oh, shoot. Don't say that.
Should we withdraw it?
Oh, should we withdraw?
Will that make it easier if we withdraw it? You don't have to find your
Oh,
papers then?
I think we just confirm it.
Sure.
Well, if you just withdraw, then we don't have to, I don't have to do anything
Oh,
else.
yeah.
Oh, okay, well
Well-
then we'll confirm it, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not for you, it's,
With 15, wasn't it?
Yeah.
15,
Or no, it's just a withdrawal.
So withdraw.
1563?
156.
Withdraw.
Roll 03.
That will conclude the matters for today. I'd like to thank everyone for the enjoyable evening.